August 7th, the day before the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. But first, America was celebrating the 2008 Star Festival. In the small town of Northwood, the streets were draped in lights and decorations. Storefronts were adorned with fresh flowers, festive signs, and string lights, all ready to capitalize on the business of young couples. Susan Wallace's Sweet Return Bakery was no exception. Early that morning, all 3 locations were bustling, arranging fresh pastries and special couples cakes made just for the festival. The front of the store was hung with colorful lights and promotional posters, along with a slogan conceived by the young master himself, Leo Hammer Wallace, the Star Festival, the sweetest start for your sweetheart. Starting around noon, business exploded. Leo, Claire, Kevin, and Tessa were all there to help out, playing the part of shop staff, and they were still swamped. Fortunately, the bakery's female employees had undergone nearly a month of personal training from the young master's wife herself. Their efficiency and service quality had improved dramatically. No matter how chaotic it got, they remained calm, orderly, and greeted every customer with a warm, genuine smile. Dressed in the bakery's pretty pink uniforms and stylish low heels, they moved through the store like butterflies, flitting between customers. Their sweet holiday greetings were paired with practiced sales pitches, getting the young women who came in excited and eager to try everything. The boyfriends accompanying them couldn't help but sneak glances at the staff's graceful figures and long legs in their stockings, even as they generously opened their wallets. Sales continued to skyrocket at an astonishing rate. The sight made Tessa's jaw drop. This all-female army. She whispered, "It's kind of terrifying." Then a thought struck her. She frowned and turned to Claire. "You'd better keep a close eye on your Leo and my Kevin. Otherwise, this is like letting 2 rats loose in a rice silo." Claire was perfectly composed. "Don't worry, I sent them to the back to help in the kitchen." Tessa sighed in relief. "Oh, good." As the 2 of them were talking, 2 heads peeked surreptitiously out from the kitchen doorway. "Leo, you think they'll spot us if we just take a quick look?" "Relax. What's the harm in one look? When it comes to who wears the pants in this relationship, I say jump, and Bertha Sue asks how high." The next second, Claire and Tessa, as if sensing something, both turned their heads. They caught the 2 culprits red-handed. Both women raised a single, perfect eyebrow. "What are you looking at? Get back in there." The 2 heads shot back like startled mice. "Yes, ma'am." Once back in the kitchen, the 2 brothers started grumbling. "So much for who wears the pants. More like who's completely whipped. What do you know? It's called respecting your girlfriend." After helping at the bakery all afternoon, the 4 of them were finally free to enjoy their own Star Festival evening. It was dinner time. Because of the holiday, every slightly upscale restaurant in the small town was packed, with not a single table available. The 2 couples didn't mind. The most important part of the Star Festival was being with the person you love. They found a food truck in the plaza at the foot of Beacon Hill Park, pulled up a few plastic stools around a small table, and sat down. They ordered a few plates of fried rice from the owner, plus a plate of beef with onions that was so heavy on the onions you could barely see the beef. They talked, laughed, ate, and drank. They were perfectly happy. After dinner, with their stomachs full, the 4 of them strolled down Park Road. When they passed a flower vendor, Leo and Kevin had the good sense to buy 2 bouquets, which they trotted back to present to their respective girlfriends. They were each rewarded with a kiss. Around 8, they were starting to get tired, and Tessa suggested a movie. The other 3 happily agreed. They went into the theater at the base of the hill, bought tickets, and found seats in the back row. While they waited for the movie to start, Kevin looked around and sighed wistfully. "Man," he said, "we're missing Annie cakes this time." During winter break on Valentine's Day, the 2 couples had also gone to the movies. But back then, Anna had been there as the ultimate third wheel, monopolizing both Leo and Kevin's girlfriends. At the time, it had driven the 2 guys insane. Now that she wasn't here, they found themselves missing her. Tessa was also a little concerned. "Oh yeah, where is Annie Cakes? Is she still not back?" Leo nodded. "I asked her yesterday. She said her internship isn't over yet. Another couple of days." Claire thought for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "I'll send her another message." Anna stood alone on the side of the road, holding her suitcase. She glanced at the message from her sister-in-law, thought for a second, and decided not to reply. She put her phone away. She turned and looked at the prominent sign marking the exit of the Northwood train station, a little lost in thought. Her internship had ended yesterday. She had just gotten back to Northwood today, the Star Festival. Her father was out on a date with some other woman. Her mother had called while she was on the train, launching into another one of her dramatic, rambling complaints, but never once asking how her daughter was doing. She was back in Northwood, but she had no desire to return to the house she grew up in. Anna hadn't contacted her brother and sister-in-law either. She knew it was the Star Festival and didn't want to bother them. On a day like this, it was hard not to feel a pang of loneliness. A faint, self-deprecating look crossed the young woman's face. She shook her head. A taxi pulled up, and the driver leaned over, his thick Northwood accent booming cheerfully. Where to, miss? Anna thought for a moment, then opened the door and got in. Find me a bar. I just want to sit for a while. He stepped out of the car. Standing in front of the main strip of bars in the small town of Northwood, Wyatt Way felt a little disoriented as he watched the bustling crowds and the festive, brightly lit scene. Just a moment ago, he had been at West Mountain Hospital on the outskirts of the city. He'd only intended to visit his grandfather, but he'd run into a pack of relatives who had, for once, decided to show up. They weren't there to visit, however. They were standing outside the ICU, loudly arguing over the distribution of the family's assets. After checking on his sleeping grandfather, he'd been met by his parents, who greeted him with feigned concern before smoothly informing him they had already arranged introductions to a number of other prominent young women. He had politely refused and smiled as he said his goodbyes, a smile that held a distant, icy chill. The gap between him and his parents seemed to widen with every passing day. Leaving the hospital, his mood was heavy. His first instinct was to head back to the company office on Kongping Road and bury himself in work, his usual escape. But then he remembered a certain girl's earnest advice. So he changed his mind. As his taxi passed the train station, he acted on a strange impulse and told the driver to stop. When he came back to himself, he was standing on the soil of Northwood, a place he hadn't been in years. Looking at the noisy, vibrant crowds of his hometown, he felt a strange sense of comfort. His mind relaxed slightly. Wyatt let out a soft breath. Well, since I'm here, I might as well find a place to sit and have a drink. His eyes scanned the row of bars along the street. He saw a sign. It was simple, just 2 words, the alibi. Maybe it was just a whim, or maybe the bar's name intrigued him. Wyatt started walking toward it. A TV screen was mounted by the door, playing a black and white film from the 1940s. Casablanca. The movie was in its second act. Over the slow, intoxicating music, the classic line was spoken. Of all the towns in all the world, she walked into mine. Fate is a strange thing, as if a higher power is quietly pulling the strings. On this Star Festival night in the small town of Northwood, as the lonely heir of the Way family casually walked into the alibi. At a table in a far corner of the bar, a young woman, also alone, was already seated, drinking in silence. This chapter turned out great. Please leave a comment and a gift. After the movie, the 2 couples came out of the theater. They said their goodbyes on the sidewalk at the foot of Beacon Hill Park. After watching his best friend and his girlfriend drive off in a taxi, Leo turned to Claire. What's next on the agenda? Claire thought for a moment. It's still early. Let's just walk for a while. Leo nodded happily and held out his hand to his girlfriend. The young woman gracefully placed her slender hand in his. A year had passed, and this Star Festival, the official couple held hands, their fingers intertwining naturally. They walked side by side down the bustling, crowded street. They didn't need to talk. Just walking together on this hot, humid summer night was enough to enjoy the beautiful peace of each other's company. They passed a smoothie shop. They were both a little thirsty. The couple went inside, ordered 2 smoothies, and sat down at a table by the wall. While they waited, Leo pulled out his phone and scrolled through happiness for a bit. He saw a photo update that made him raise his eyebrows in surprise. Sitting across from him, Claire noticed the change in his expression and asked curiously, "What is it?" Leo smiled and handed her his phone. A post from Mako Entertainment's esteemed project Li Jiao. She's still at the office. Claire was also a bit surprised. She took the phone and looked. On the screen was a post that the it girl, Isabella Zhao, had updated on her Happy Nest account 2 hours ago. The photo showed the new Mako Entertainment office space. A young woman wearing a beret sat at her desk by the floor-to-ceiling window, paintbrush in hand, completely absorbed in her work. Even though it was only a side profile, with most of her face obscured by the wide brim of her hat, you could still tell she was stunningly beautiful. Her focused, diligent expression practically leaped off the screen. Below the photo, the caption read, "Valentine's Day. No distractions. Still working late." In the comment section below, there were already hundreds of messages from her fans, all marveling at the it girl's incredible work ethic and expressing sympathy that she had to work late on the Star Festival. Even Claire felt a pang of pity. She looked up at her boyfriend reproachfully. It's summer break, and it's the Star Festival. Why are you still making little Isabella work overtime? You'd work a donkey to death. Leo felt a little awkward. He scratched his head and tried to defend himself. I didn't know she was working late today. I haven't given her any new assignments recently. As he said it, he started to doubt himself. I don't think I gave her anything, right? He felt a twinge of guilt. Even though he couldn't remember anything specific, it sounded exactly like something a black-hearted capitalist like him would do. But making an employee work overtime on summer break and on the Star Festival was really pushing it. He thought for a moment, then picked up his phone. He decided to just call his number one workhorse directly. Ring, ring, ring. The call connected. Isabella's bright, energetic, and clever voice came through the receiver. Hello, boss. Then she heard Leo's question. On the other end of the line, she puffed out her chest and declared righteously, Boss, you didn't assign me anything. I voluntarily chose to stay and work overtime on the festival. The company is my home. Work is my other half. Creating more value for the company makes me so happy. Oh, are you asking about Wyatt? He's not here. He's probably out on a date with some other pretty girl. But you can't blame him. Not every employee is as outstanding as I am. Leo hadn't asked, but that didn't stop the it girl from shamelessly throwing her colleague under the bus. Her passionate speech was so moving it even touched a black-hearted capitalist like Leo. He praised and encouraged her for a moment. Then, under the threatening glare of his girlfriend, he painfully added that he would send her a bonus of triple overtime pay. The call ended. In the Mako Entertainment office on Kongping Road, Isabella hung up, completely satisfied. The next second, her face broke into a wide grin. She wanted to pop a bottle of champagne right then and there. Well done, Isabella. You're a genius. She had carefully crafted the photo and caption, chosen the perfect time to post it to her Happy Nest account, and waited 2 long hours. Finally, her boss had seen it. Her plea for sympathy and display of loyalty was a success. This move was invincible. From now on, the title of Mako Entertainment's #1 employee was hers and hers alone. It was a little unfair to Wyatt, but the battle for the throne, no wait, the battle for the corner office was always ruthless. Thinking of Wyatt, the cheerful it girl picked up her phone and sent him a quick text to see how he was doing. She texted to ask where he was. A reply came back almost immediately. 2 words, Northwood. Isabella stared, stunned. Northwood? Then it hit her. Wait a minute, isn't that the boss's hometown? The realization struck her like lightning. Oh no, my rival has already taken his brown nosing all the way to the boss's hometown. Damn it, that way is a devious mastermind. Back at the smoothie shop, the drinks were ready. The couple got up, paid, and walked out with their smoothies. Claire poked a straw into her cup and took a sip, then turned to Leo and asked casually, what did Isabella say about Wyatt the punching bag just now? Leo replied nonchalantly, nothing much, just that he was out on a date with a pretty girl for the festival. Claire raised an eyebrow. A date. Then she shook her head. Impossible. Now, it was Leo's turn to be curious. Why? Claire thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully as she explained it to her boyfriend. His family. They have a lot of messy problems. He grew up with it. It shaped his personality. On the surface, he's easygoing with everyone. But deep down, he keeps a distance from them all. You can get close to him, she said softly, but you can't easily get in. Leo was taken aback for a moment. Then he nodded. It was as if something clicked into place. He sighed. I see. He's a lot like Annie Cakes in that way. On this Star Festival night in the small town of Northwood, the bar was full of couples, but there were also plenty of single people drinking away their loneliness. Wyatt sat at the bar. Anna sat in a corner by the wall on the other side. A man and a woman, separated by the entire length of the bar, each drinking alone. Their paths had not yet crossed. Of course, that was only for now. Inside the alibi, a slow, smooth melody played over the speakers. Seated at opposite ends of the bar, a man and a woman quietly drank alone to the music, separate from the world around them, as if in their own private bubbles. Both were strikingly good-looking, with an air about them that drew attention even in the dim light of the bar. Several customers approached them, one after the other, trying to strike up a conversation. Both of them responded with polite smiles and gentle refusals, but while their lips smiled, their eyes remained cool and distant. The would-be suitors eventually got the hint and backed off. But some were persistent. One guy wouldn't leave Anna alone, insisting on buying her a drink. His hands started to wander, and his words grew cruder. Anna looked at him calmly and raised her glass. Before he could react, she splashed the drink in his face. Get lost. Soaked and humiliated, the man staggered to his feet, his embarrassment turning to rage. Bitch, I was being nice. He raised his hand to strike her, but his wrist was caught in an iron grip. He looked up, angry and surprised. The hell do you want? He was met with Wyatt's calm gaze. She told you to get lost, Wyatt said evenly. Didn't you hear her? Furious, the man balled his other hand into a fist and swung at Wyatt. Who the fuck are you? But in the next moment, Wyatt sidestepped, easily dodging the punch. With the hand still gripping the man's wrist, he pulled and twisted, throwing the man off balance. At the same time, he shot his elbow up, slamming it into the man's jaw. The man's head snapped back. Wyatt grabbed his collar, pushed him down by the chest, and slammed him onto the floor. Thud! The heavy sound echoed through half the bar. The man was flat on his back, pinned to the ground, momentarily unable to move. It was impossibly cool, impossibly smooth. Wyatt stood up, his expression as calm and casual as ever. Don't mention it. As he spoke, he started to turn back. But out of the corner of his eye, he caught a dark shape lunging at him from behind. Before Wyatt could react, a slender, pale hand shot out from the side, grabbing a beer bottle from the table and smashing it over the attacker's head. Crack! It was impossibly slick, impossibly decisive. The first man's friend, who had been planning a sneak attack, didn't even have time to act. The bottle connected solidly, and he crumpled to the floor next to his companion, moaning and clutching his head. This time, the entire bar erupted in chaos. Even Wyatt was stunned. He looked up and met the gaze of a stunningly beautiful face. Anna tossed the broken bottle aside and casually dusted off her hands. She glanced at Wyatt, her tone just as calm and even as it had been. You're welcome. Holding their smoothies, the couple walked along the riverwalk. They chatted idly as they strolled. Claire continued to tell Leo about her childhood friend, Wyatt the punching bag, his family situation, and his past. Leo's understanding of the young heir deepened. He remarked that the drama of a real wealthy family was even more ridiculous than the stories in novels. Claire nodded. So, she said, even though I used to beat him up, he was my only friend back then. In a way, I was just as lonely as he was, so I felt a sort of connection with him. Leo smiled and asked, and now? Claire raised an eyebrow. Now is different, of course. I have a boyfriend now. As she spoke, she looped her arm through his, her expression completely serious. Now that I have a boyfriend, my friends can just be the ones who pay our salaries. Leo nodded repeatedly. Reasonable, perfectly reasonable. Then he thought for a moment and added, but it's okay. He didn't have friends before, but now he can hang out with all of us. I told him a while ago he should come stay in Northwood for a bit during the summer break. Claire nodded happily. That's a great idea. Then, as if remembering something, she said, Annie Cakes will be back in a couple of days, too. With her and Tessa and Kevin, it'll be a real party here in Northwood. The bar was getting lively again. The owner, hearing the commotion, rushed over, only to be met by the calm, placid face of the Way family's heir. Wyatt explained the situation simply, glancing at the unlucky guy who'd nearly had his head caved in by a beer bottle. He casually tossed $200 bills on the table from medical expenses. Case closed. The harasser and his friend knew they were in the wrong, and even if they wanted to argue, they were intimidated by the presence and skill of the tall, handsome man before them. They took the $200 and left sullenly. The disturbance was over. The bar's customers turned their attention back to their own drinks. As for the two main characters of the drama, although they had just teamed up with unexpected chemistry, they had no intention of speaking further now that it was over. They just glanced at each other, momentarily struck by the other's good looks and powerful aura, and slightly puzzled by a vague sense of familiarity. But just as quickly, they both returned to normal. They gave a simple nod of acknowledgement. One sat back down at his table, the other turned and walked calmly away. It was as if nothing had happened between them at all. The smooth, mellow music continued to drift through the bar. Back in their respective seats, they continued to drink alone, one glass after another. By the river walk, the couple had grown tired of walking. They sat down side by side on the grassy slope of the riverbank to rest. A burst of laughter and noise came from up ahead. Leo and Claire looked toward the sound. On the nearby bridge, a group of teenagers were gathered, setting off fireworks, their excited cheers echoing in the night. Summer. Fireworks. A small town, filled with the boisterous youth. The scene pulled the two of them back to this same time last year. They looked at each other and smiled in perfect understanding. They held hands, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Facing the late summer breeze, they watched the bright fireworks set off by the students in the distance. Their minds were relaxed and at peace. The sound of classical jazz drifted from the bar's speakers. He was pleasantly buzzed. Glass after glass of alcohol had gone down. His mind was still clear, but his thoughts were starting to drift. He looked around. Couples were scattered throughout the bar, leaning against each other, whispering intimately. It was warm and happy. Normally, he wouldn't have paid any mind to such a scene. But tonight, perhaps it was the alcohol or the festive atmosphere of the Star Festival, but it only made Wyatt feel a deeper sense of loneliness. He shook his head, trying to clear the haze. He reached into his pocket for his phone to check the time. As he pulled it out, something else came with it. A slip of paper fluttered to the floor. He bent down to pick it up. As he held in his hand, he glanced at it instinctively and froze. On the paper was a string of numbers, written in a bold, flowing script. He remembered where this note had come from. At her corner table, a slightly tipsy Anna lazily propped her chin on her hand and idly scrolled through her phone's contact list. Her eyes stopped on a string of numbers with no name attached. She paused. She remembered this number. At the Comic and Anime Fest, a girl in a fertilizer bag costume had enthusiastically recommended a friend, pestering her until she finally let her input the contact information into her phone. The number had been in her contacts for a long time. It had never called. Anna herself had never paid it any mind. But tonight, perhaps it was the atmosphere of the Star Festival or the alcohol. It made her feel a sharp loneliness in the crowded, lively bar. For the first time, she wanted to talk to someone, even if it was just a simple, casual chat. At any other time, the proud heir of the Wei family would never have had such an inclination. But tonight was an exception. As the alcohol began to take hold, relaxing his mind, his usual self-restraint also began to loosen. Looking at the slip of paper in his hand, Wyatt raised an eyebrow. He was intrigued. He didn't know this person at all. But that was the beauty of it. Looking at the strange number in her phone, Anna raised an eyebrow. She didn't know where this person was or who they were. But a stranger like this was the perfect person to talk to on a lonely, slightly drunken night. Wyatt picked up his phone and slowly began to type in the numbers. Anna's finger hovered over the call button. She hesitated for a moment, thinking she was about to press it. By the river walk, the teenagers on the bridge brought out a huge firework and excitedly prepared to light the fuse. On the grass, Leo and Claire heard the commotion and looked over, ready to enjoy the show. As they waited for the display, a thought suddenly occurred to Leo. Annie Cakes. Punching bag. Wyatt and Annie Cakes. The names actually sound kind of good together. What do you think of them as a couple? It was just an impulsive, offhand question. Claire was taken aback. She thought of her best friend / sister-in-law and her childhood friend, and their identical, distant personalities. She shook her head slightly. It would be difficult. She paused, thinking again. For those two to get together, it would probably take a little bit of fate, a bit of coincidence. As they spoke, a whooshing sound came from the distance. They looked up to see a brilliant firework streaking into the night sky. In that instant, it was as if the world fell silent. Then came a deafening boom. A magnificent, colorful explosion of light filled the sky. The sound of classical jazz echoed through the bar. Suddenly, the sharp ring of a cell phone cut through the music. It came from the corner of the bar, clear and distinct. At her table, Anna stared at the caller ID on her screen, momentarily stunned. She almost thought she was drunk and hallucinating. Hesitantly, she finally pressed the answer button, picking up the call she hadn't yet made, but had arrived ahead of time. She put the phone to her ear. Anna took a shallow breath and said, "Hello." The other end of the line was silent. Just as she was about to ask if there was a problem with the signal, she finally heard a voice. "Hello." It was a man's voice, deep and pleasant, but sounded stunned and strangely familiar. For some reason, Anna had a feeling. She instinctively looked up. Her gaze traveled across the bar. At the bar, Wyatt stood, phone in hand, his expression dazed, his eyes following the sound of her voice. Across the entire room, their eyes met through the dim, colorful lights. They saw each other's faces clearly. The firework from the bridge bloomed in the Northwood night sky, brilliant and magnificent, as bright as day. On this Summer Star Festival night, a couple sat on the grass, smiling at each other under the fireworks before leaning in for a kiss. And in a bar, a lonely man and woman sat at opposite ends of the room, staring at each other in stunned silence. It was like a dream, a glance that spanned 10,000 years. Wahoo, a big chapter. Please leave a comment and a gift. No one could have imagined a coincidence like this. A coincidence so perfect, it was as if fate itself had intentionally plucked a certain thread. The lights in the bar were soft and dim, and the smooth, mellow sound of jazz mingled with the intoxicating aroma of alcohol. At the corner table, the atmosphere was quiet. The man and woman sitting across from each other stared at one another again, still in a daze, unable to process the situation. Anna looked at the number on her phone screen, then at the slip of paper the man who had just sat down placed on the table. The handwriting on the paper was familiar and friendly. She easily recognized it as her own. Slowly, she looked up at the man sitting across from her. The girl in the fertilizer bag costume. Wyatt nodded instinctively. A friend. A colleague. Then he also looked at the slip of paper and at the phone screen on the table in front of the young woman. The call he had just made had rung on that very phone. He looked up, meeting her gaze. The comic and anime fest. Sailor Moon. Anna nodded, still stunned. Yes. She looked back at Wyatt. Tuxedo mask? Wyatt nodded again. Yes. Then he asked, You're from around here? No, well, Northwood. You? Yeah, I'm from Northwood, too. The air grew quiet again for a moment. The alcohol had them both in a slight daze, feeling a little disoriented. Finally coming back to her senses, Anna took a shallow breath, looked at Wyatt, and commented calmly, Quite a coincidence. Wyatt looked at Anna and nodded. Yes, it is. With those few words, they seemed to have summed up this bizarre encounter, a casual verdict on a miraculous meeting. But it was only to hide the turmoil in their own hearts. Anna's expression seemed unchanged. She picked up her glass and gestured to Wyatt. Drink. It was the first time in her life she had ever asked a strange man to have a drink with her. Wyatt nodded slightly, his expression calm and composed as he raised his glass. All right, a single word. But it was also the first time the proud heir of the Way family had ever accepted a drink alone with a woman. The glasses clinked together, a crisp, clear sound. As the liquid swirled in their glasses, it seemed to announce that on this Summer Star Festival night, the story of the man and woman at the table had only just begun. Time seemed to slow, steeped in alcohol, making the summer night stretch on. At the corner table, the man and woman, neither of whom were particularly heavy drinkers, continued to drink, one glass after another, without stopping. Unlike the other customers at the surrounding tables, who were laughing and chatting, their glasses clinking together, the two of them simply raised their glasses and drank. After their initial exchange, there was no more conversation, just the clinking of glasses and then drinking. It was as if they had an unspoken understanding. The it girl of East Bay Financial was usually friendly and outgoing on campus, always with a smile on her face. The heir of the Way family was known for his gentle, warm demeanor, his smile like a spring breeze. But tonight, neither of them bothered to put on a mask, unceremoniously revealing their true selves. One was cool and distant. The other was calm and remote. The air of aloofness they naturally exuded was enough to make anyone keep their distance. But as they sat across from each other at the table, feeling the full force of the other's cool aura, they felt no discomfort at all. In fact, it was almost comforting. It was the feeling of finding your own kind. They didn't need to talk. On a night like this, all they needed was quiet companionship. Glass after glass went down, and a pleasant haze began to settle over them. As their glasses clinked together again and again, their eyes would occasionally meet. In the dim light, Anna looked at the faint outline of Wyatt's face and felt a momentary sense of dislocation. Your face. It was familiar. It reminded her of the unlucky guy she'd run into in the haunted house at the East Bay amusement park in June, in the near-total darkness. But then she shook her head slightly, cutting herself off. Never mind. It must be a mistake. Hearing her words, Wyatt also frowned slightly. Your voice. It sounded familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. It was like the voice of the godmother he'd acquired over the phone when he'd called his benefactor bro to wish him a happy new year. Then the heir of the Way family chuckled. It's nothing. It couldn't be that much of a coincidence. Their thoughts returned to the present. They looked at each other again and raised their glasses in silent agreement. A crisp, clear clink. The night deepened. The alcohol-soaked atmosphere grew heavier, more intoxicating. At 2:30 in the morning, when the bar was closing, the man and woman who had been drinking all night finally walked out. The moment they stepped outside, they were met with the cool night air and the still bustling, brightly lit street. The calls of street vendors mingled with the fragrant aroma of fried rice, slightly waking them from their drunken stupor. They were both about 80% drunk, but still clinging to a sliver of sobriety. Anna looked at Wyatt and nodded calmly. I'm leaving. Wyatt's expression was composed and serene. He just gave a slight nod. I won't see you out. Even after drinking together all night, even after such a miraculous, coincidental encounter, it seemed to have caused no great stir in their hearts. They had met. They had drunk, and now they would part. To meet on the road of life and share a drink was fate enough. There was no need to linger. A casual goodbye, not even a see you later. A taxi was pulling up nearby. Anna raised her hand to hail it and started to walk forward. In her drunken state, she didn't notice another delivery van coming from behind her. Watch out! Wyatt, seeing the danger, reacted instantly. The warning shot out of his mouth as he instinctively reached out and grabbed Anna's hand. pulling her back sharply. The young woman was yanked backward, narrowly missing the passing van by a hair's breadth. The danger was over, but she couldn't stop her momentum. The force of Wyatt's pull sent her stumbling backward, right into his arms. The air went still. Anna looked up, slightly dazed, and met Wyatt's equally surprised gaze. Their eyes locked. They were so close they could feel each other's breath, hear each other's heartbeat. In that moment, the young woman stared at the man in front of her. She didn't pull away. Then, slowly, she lowered her head. Without a word, she buried her face in his chest. Wyatt froze. He could feel the warmth of the young woman in his arms, her faint, sweet scent. He could feel her arms, which had somehow wrapped around him. And he could feel the barely perceptible trembling of her body in his embrace. It was the vulnerability she had tried so hard to hide all night, finally seeping through. It struck him in the heart. It was a resonance of shared experience. Unconsciously, he slowly raised his hands and, with a slight stiffness, gently hugged her back. The scene seemed to freeze. The cool night wind blew, lifting strands of her hair. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't ambiguous. It was just a man and a woman who had shed their hard shells, letting down their guard for a brief moment to lean on each other, to share a moment of warmth. The street was noisy and crowded, a river of humanity flowing around them. But it was as if none of it had anything to do with them. They were oblivious to their surroundings. In their embrace, it was as if the world had fallen silent. No words were spoken. Before this moment, they had drunk all night in silence. After this moment, they would go their separate ways. But right now, there was only this single moment of warmth. The day after the Star Festival was August 8th. It was also the day of the Beijing Olympics opening ceremony. Yesterday, while the two couples were celebrating together, Tessa and Kevin had suggested they all get together again today to watch the live broadcast. As people who had been reborn, Leo and Claire had already seen and experienced the Beijing Olympics in their past lives. But now, back in 2008, they had no objections to their friend's suggestion and readily agreed. In 2008, after experiencing catastrophic snowstorms and earthquakes, the country needed a grand, magnificent event to lift the heavy atmosphere and give everyone a much-needed shot of adrenaline. The Beijing Olympics were the perfect choice to boost national pride and confidence. The whole world was watching with bated breath. After deciding to watch the broadcast together, the four of them agreed to meet at Claire's villa in Coral Court. Her father, the chairman of Sterling Holdings, was back on the East Coast, so the Sterling Villa was once again under the firm rule of its young mistress. The TV was big enough. The space was more than ample, and they had a top-tier chef like Mrs. Fong to help with the cooking. It couldn't be more perfect. At 2 in the afternoon, Leo and Claire arrived at the villa. They gave Mrs. Fong a heads up and began preparing for dinner. With Mrs. Fong assisting, the enthusiastic young mistress of the house was ready to show off her skills in the kitchen again. And Leo could rest easy. The only times Bertha Sue's cooking was not a life-threatening risk was when one of two legends was present, Mr. Qian or Mrs. Fong. The former could handle and dispose of any dark culinary creations. The latter could turn dross into gold, making even dark matter delicious. After Mrs. Fong returned from the market with the groceries, Claire followed her into the kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and prepared to work her magic. Leo went to the study, turned on the computer, and browsed the internet for a while. Today, the biggest topic online was, without a doubt, the opening ceremony. The hype was off the charts, eclipsing everything else. Happy Nest, of course, wouldn't miss out on such a hot topic. Leo and David Chung had already discussed it, and through a conference call, they had given instructions to the company's upper management. On their own social media platform, they launched a topic event, Happy Nest, cheering for our Olympic athletes together. Once the games officially began, the platform would provide real-time medal counts and push notifications for every key victory. They also spent a considerable sum to invite some well-known athletes and commentators to create accounts and provide analysis and commentary on the events. It was all work that Sina Weibo had done in his past life. He had just stolen a march on them. As for tonight's opening ceremony, Leo had another idea. He had the staff quickly create a small app for real-time commentary. Although they couldn't secure the rights to stream the video, they could provide a text-based live broadcast, allowing users to comment and discuss in real time in the section below. The plan was perfectly thought out, considering every angle. The Happy Nest employees were once again blown away. They were filled with admiration for their young boss. As expected of Mr. Wallace, even on summer break, he's not idle. The plan he's come up with is flawless. Meanwhile, at the Nexus headquarters, the top executives were in a meeting, filled with suspicion. What's going on? Why does this feel so familiar? It feels like something Nexus would have thought of. As soon as someone voiced this confusion, their chairman, Carl Carlson, shot them down. If you're not as good as them, you take the hit and stand at attention. Don't make excuses. Happiness came out with this first. You guys are still stuck on a half-baked concept. What? You think they have X-ray vision? That they can see the future product you're going to make and copy it from a distance? You know what that's called? A coup d'etat against reality. At 4 in the afternoon, Kevin and Tessa arrived. As they walked in, Leo mentioned that Claire was cooking today. The couple immediately froze in place. Their pupils contracted in horror, and they were about to turn around and walk right back out. Fortunately, Leo quickly added that Mrs. Phone was helping, and they breathed a sigh of relief as they stepped inside. Curious, Tessa went into the kitchen, hoping to learn a few things from Mrs. Phone. Kevin followed Leo to the study and excitedly opened up the Battle Through the Heavens browser game on the computer. He had become a devoted fan himself. He just hadn't spent much money on it, relying purely on grinding. While playing the game, the head of Mako Entertainment's Portland branch suddenly had an idea. Leo, hey, why don't you let me be a shill in the game? You know, give me unlimited currency, unlimited materials. Leo was taken aback. Then he lectured him righteously. What are you thinking? We run a legitimate browser game here. We don't do shady stuff like that. Players spend money because they want to. He scolded Kevin until he was nodding his head in shame, humbly accepting the lesson. Then Kevin noticed a minimized document on the desktop and clicked on it curiously. Leo, what's this? Leo's expression didn't change. Oh, new game features. I've added 17 new ways for players to spend their money. A legitimate browser game. No shady stuff. We don't trick people out of their money. We just rob them. While the two of them were in the study testing the new version of the game, Leo received a call. It was from Wyatt. He answered, and Wyatt's voice, as enthusiastic as ever, came through the phone. Bro, where are you? I'm coming to find you. Leo was surprised to hear that Mako Entertainment's #2 employee was also back in Northwood. He happily invited him over to join the party and watch the opening ceremony. As he was about to give Wyatt the address, Wyatt cheerfully cut him off. I know. Villa #2, Coral Court. I know that place like the back of my hand. I got beaten up in that basement training room for years, haha. Leo was speechless. Right, to be able to laugh so heartily about such a tragic story was truly admirable. After hanging up, Leo came out of the study and saw Claire walking out of the kitchen, also on her phone. He casually mentioned it to her. Little Wei is in Northwood. He's coming over later. Claire, who seemed to have just finished a call herself, looked surprised. Really? Annie Cakes just called me too. She said she's back in Northwood and is on her way over. Leo was also surprised. She's back today too? He thought for a moment and commented, quite a coincidence. Daily request for comments and gifts. She had already been on her way over when she called her sister-in-law. After hanging up, Anna sat in the back of the car, watching the scenery fly by, her mind drifting back to the previous night. She was a little lost in thought. Last night, the Star Festival. She had thought it would be just another night of drinking alone, a familiar way to pass the time. But she had never expected such a strange turn of events. Such an impossibly perfect coincidence. Drinking alone had turned into drinking with someone else. They had barely spoken a word to each other. Yet there was an unprecedented sense of ease and understanding between them. And then there was what happened after they left the bar on the street corner. That embrace in the summer night wind, amidst the bustling crowd. It felt like it had lasted forever, and yet it was over in an instant. After they pulled away, they both went back to their usual calm demeanors, turning and leaving without a backward glance, not even exchanging names. But in that moment, when the world seemed to fall silent, when everything around them faded away, the warmth she had drawn from him, even now, just thinking about it, her heart skipped a beat. It was as if the hard shell she had built around herself for so many years had trembled, and a few small cracks had appeared. She took a shallow breath. Anna shook her head slightly and whispered, as if only to herself. It was just the alcohol, just a coincidence. Yes, it was just the intoxicating summer night breeze. It was just the alcohol in the bar. It was just an accident, nearly getting hit by a car, being pulled back by a kind stranger, and stumbling into his arms. It was just a moment of weakness, a desire for a fleeting bit of warmth. A million reasons, any one of them, but it definitely, absolutely was not her heart being moved. When she arrived at the Sterling Villa in Coral Court, the door was opened by Mrs. Phone. The moment the door opened, the young woman's face instantly switched to a bright, sunny smile. Ah, Mrs. Phone, I missed you so much. I haven't seen you in 6 months. I'm still thinking about the food you made during winter break. I have to have some of your cooking today. Hey, where's my sister-in-law and my brother? Hello, hello, the princess has arrived. Come out and greet me. With a flurry of shouts, she kicked off her shoes at the entrance, not even bothering with slippers, and padded into the house in her white socks, her long legs carrying her with a boisterous energy. First, she trotted into the kitchen to greet her sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, did you miss me? Wow, Tessa, you're here too. You've gotten even prettier in one semester. Look at that cute little butt, let me give it a squeeze. Hey, sister-in-law, where's my brother? Then she stormed into the study. Leo the pig, your most beloved sister has returned. Yo, Kevin's here too? What are you guys doing playing a game? Let me see. Wow, what game is this? Why are the girls' chests so big? Leo the pig, you're so dead. I'm telling my sister-in-law you're playing an H game. It had been relatively quiet before she arrived. The moment she entered, the atmosphere in the Sterling villa shot up by 8 degrees. She had the energy of a whole crowd. Her mouth was a machine gun, chattering away until Leo and Kevin couldn't take it anymore and kicked her out of the study. Anna didn't mind. She eagerly went back to the kitchen to join the fun, watching her sister-in-law cook and cheering her on. Sister-in-law, your cooking has improved so much. Having Mrs. Phone to guide you really makes a difference. But what's this black thing? A failure? Who said it's a failure? This black thing is great. I say we don't waste it. Let Leo the pig and Kevin try it later. Claire, who had just been praised for her cooking, was nodding in satisfaction. Beside her, Tessa asked Anna curiously, Annie Cakes, you just got back today? Why not a day earlier? If you'd come yesterday, the three of us could have celebrated the Star Festival together. Let those two guys go play by themselves. Anna's expression didn't change. She answered casually, Oh, I got here yesterday, but it was late, so I didn't call you guys. Besides, it's the Star Festival. You couples should celebrate. If I played third wheel again, my brother and Kevin would probably kill me, she ended with a giggle. Claire and Tessa exchanged a look. Tessa couldn't help but advise, You really should find a boyfriend. With your looks, you could find anyone. Claire nodded in agreement. It's true. But Anna immediately clapped her hands over her ears and started whining. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm happy being single. I love being single. Then she deftly snatched a plate from the counter and zipped out of the room. I'll take this out. You guys carry on, leaving Claire and Tessa to exchange another helpless look and a small shake of their heads. Around 6 o'clock, with Mrs. Phone in command, the cooking was mostly done. The girls began bringing the dishes to the table. The two guys came out of the study. Seeing Leo and Kevin, Anna immediately turned to Claire and Tessa to tattle. I'm reporting them. Those two were playing a dirty game in there. Kevin jumped up. Annie Cakes, you can't just accuse people. What do you mean a dirty game? That's a game my bro Leo made himself. Anna froze. He made it himself. Beside her, Tessa smiled and explained, Yeah, Leo is amazing now. He made a game, and he's about to become a tycoon. After hearing the explanation, Anna was completely shocked. A tycoon. One game can make tens of millions of dollars. The next second, she zipped over to Leo, her face a mask of sycophantic flattery. Brother, your little sister was blind to your greatness before. If I've ever done anything wrong, please don't hold it against me. Oh, by the way, there are a couple of handbags I've been wanting to buy recently. Leo looked at her. And you are. The others almost burst out laughing. Anna's face fell. She turned away in a huff. Fine, don't buy them for me. Forgetting your sister as soon as you get rich. Sure. But then she asked curiously, But, Leo the pig, when did you learn to make games? I've never heard you had that skill before. Leo waved his hand. I didn't do it alone. I found a dedicated team of people, artists, programmers, all experts. As he was speaking, the doorbell rang. Leo looked toward the sound and smiled. Speak of the devil. Tessa was about to get the door, but Anna beat her to it. I'll get it. Leo the pig's employee, right? That makes him my subordinate, in a way. Let me see what kind of expert this is. Chattering away, she skipped to the door. Behind her, Leo and the others were laughing and talking. The atmosphere was familiar and friendly, easy and joyful. It put Anna at ease. She stopped thinking about last night, letting the memory of that embrace on the street fade into the past. Some experiences, some people, you meet them once, then you wave goodbye and forget them in the sea of humanity, never to meet again. And that was enough. Feeling a sense of relief, Anna reached the door, opened it, and greeted the person on the other side with a bright, sunny smile. Welcome. The next moment, she was met with the sight of Wyatt Way, standing at the door, his face frozen in a look of pure, petrified shock. Anna, ? Wyatt. Villa number 2, Coral Court. He knew the place. He had been there more times than he could count. He could probably walk there with his eyes closed. As he strolled leisurely down the tree-lined path of the neighborhood, Wyatt let his thoughts drift back to the previous night. He had never imagined that a spontaneous decision to walk into a random bar in this small town, a whimsical idea to make a call to a stranger while slightly drunk, could lead to such an encounter. A meeting with a girl he had never seen before, connected only by a slip of paper with a phone number. Drinking together all night. A rare sense of relaxation. And that unexpected embrace on the bustling street corner as they left the bar. It had struck him in the heart. He could feel the vulnerability of the girl in his arms. It was a resonance he had never felt before. A mutual comfort and solace. Even though they had both calmly gone their separate ways after the embrace, as if nothing had happened. Even now, he could still taste that fleeting moment of warmth, that sense of peace. As he reached the door of the Sterling Villa and knocked, the heir of the Way family shook his head slightly and smiled. Some experiences, perhaps once is enough. To meet by chance, to share a drink, was already a stroke of luck. There was no need to dwell on it. He heard footsteps from inside, then the click of the door opening. The heir of the Way family was about to flash his signature bright, enthusiastic smile when he heard a cheerful welcome. Wyatt paused. The voice was strangely familiar. He looked up and saw the equally stunned, vacant face of a certain Annie Cakes. He froze, completely petrified. Wyatt. Anna? The air solidified. Wyatt was dumbfounded. Anna was dumbfounded. Their brains, both short-circuited. For a moment, they both wondered if there was something wrong with the way the door had opened. Slam. Anna instantly shut the door. Wyatt spun around, his back to the door, and rubbed his eyes vigorously. Something's not right. Let's try that again. Click. The door opened again. Wyatt took a deep breath and turned back around. The two-star festival drinking buddies stared at each other, wide-eyed. The air solidified again. Coming back to her senses, the usually fearless and worldly Anna couldn't help but gasp. No way. The pride of the Way family, the ever-composed heir, was completely floored. Huh? Just then, Leo, Claire, and the others, noticing the situation at the door, came over. Seeing the two of them standing there with looks of pure, ghost-seeing horror, they were confused. What's wrong? The observant Tessa's curiosity was piqued. Her gaze darted back and forth between Anna and Wyatt. Do you two know each other? At the question, Anna struggled to suppress the storm raging in her heart. Her expression quickly returned to normal, and she said nonchalantly, "Oh, I went out for a drink last night. We just happened to run into each other at a bar." Wyatt also regained his composure in a second, his expression casual. "Yeah, didn't expect to see you here again. Quite a coincidence." Their faces were impassive. With a few simple, casual words, they explained that they had just happened to meet at a bar the night before. As for everything else, they had a silent agreement to say nothing. The others didn't seem to suspect anything. They just nodded and remarked on what a coincidence it was. Reasonable, who had been at the villa, flew over to greet Anna. "Grand Princess! Grand Princess!" Then he turned to look at the young master of the Way family. He sniffed the air. The parrot suddenly squawked in surprise. "You have her perfume on you." Everyone froze. What? The next second, the parrot was swatted away by Anna's quick hand. She turned back to her brother and sister-in-law, forcing a smile. "It's nothing. Reasonable is just singing. You know that song? Toxic Perfume. Ha, he has such cheesy taste. Hey, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. Let's go eat." With a flurry of urging, everyone agreed and headed back to the dining room, leaving Anna and Wyatt behind, breathing a sigh of relief, their hearts still pounding. They instinctively glanced at each other, then quickly looked away, pretending nothing had happened. "Let's eat." "Okay." They walked to the table. The parrot, who had been knocked onto the sofa, staggered to his feet, dazed. "Speak for me. Speak for me." With everyone present, they officially began dinner. Before they started eating, Leo introduced everyone, mainly for the benefit of the two newcomers, Wyatt and Anna. "Anna, my sister. She goes to East Bay Financial. Just call her Annie Cakes." Wyatt, Claire's childhood friend. He's also the head of our programming department at Mako Entertainment. Claire added, "Just call him Punching Bag." Wyatt and Anna looked at each other. They nodded politely. "Nice to meet you." "Likewise." Beside them, Kevin looked from Anna to Wyatt and exclaimed in amazement, "Hey, Annie Cakes and Wyatt really look good together. They're a perfect match. Annie Cakes, Punching Bag. Even their names go together." Tessa's eyes lit up. She looked them both over and suggested enthusiastically, "That's right. Wyatt, you're single, right? Why don't you two try dating?" Anna's hand, holding her chopsticks, paused for a fraction of a second. Wyatt's wine glass, which he was just about to raise to his lips, also froze. Then the heir of the Way family smiled. his expression as composed as ever. I'm not really considering that right now. I think being single is pretty great at the moment. Anna also put down her chopsticks and added coolly, me too. Who says you have to be in a relationship? As long as you're happy, being single is fine. Tessa looked a little disappointed. Oh, really? But I think you two have a real connection. I mean, you even ran into each other at a bar on the Star Festival. It would be a shame not to give it a try. Anna said casually, oh, come on, there's no connection. It was just a coincidence. Wyatt nodded in full agreement. Anna is right. Just a coincidence. They went back and forth, their faces impassive. 3 sentences, and none of them strayed from the word coincidence. Listening to them, Kevin suddenly frowned. Wait a minute. This scene, why does it feel so familiar? As if he had seen it before with 2 other terrible people. Daily requests for comments and gifts. At the dining table, everyone enjoyed a wonderful dinner. The master chef, Mrs. Feng's skills were as brilliant as ever, leaving everyone satisfied and full. Kevin ate until he was stuffed, rubbing his belly and sighing contentedly. Mrs. Feng, you're a genius. This cooking is good enough for a Michelin-starred restaurant. Sitting diagonally across from him, Claire glanced at Kevin and reminded him, I helped, you know. The future CEO of Sterling Holdings, the former it girl of both Northwood High and Berkeley, couldn't care less about any other form of praise. But when it came to her culinary skills, she was particularly invested. Kevin was clearly on cloud 9 from the delicious meal, and his brain wasn't working as fast as his survival instincts. He blurted out, right, to be able to make something this delicious, even with the class president helping. If Mrs. Feng had cooked this all by herself, it would have been heavenly. The words hung in the air. The temperature in the room dropped. Claire paused, then stared at Kevin. What do you mean? Even with me helping? It was only then that Kevin realized what he'd said. He froze in terror. No, class president, that's not what I meant. Ha ha. I mean, the food you make isn't fit for human consumption. Wait, no, not that. It's fit for the Queen of England. And the Queen of England isn't human. He was babbling incoherently. He shot desperate, pleading looks at his girlfriend and his best friend. Leo, honey, help me. Sitting beside him, Leo and Tessa had already calmly picked up their bowls and scooted their chairs a little farther away from him. There was no point in trying to save a dead man. Was this kid always this brave after a full meal? The 2 couples joked and laughed as usual. But the other pair at the table, the handsome man and beautiful woman, the Star Festival drinking buddies, seemed a little distracted. When Leo and the others were talking, they would only occasionally nod or murmur a few words in agreement. They were clearly holding back, sitting upright and focusing on their food. Every now and then, one would sneak a glance at the other, and if their eyes met, they would quickly look away, pretending nothing had happened. Kevin noticed and asked, puzzled, hey, Annie-cakes, Wyatt, why are you 2 so stiff? Now that Kevin mentioned it, Leo also found it strange. He looked at Wyatt. Yeah, Wyatt, you're usually such a chatterbox. You never stop talking. Why are you acting like you have social anxiety today? Tessa also looked at Anna curiously. Annie-cakes is acting weird today, too. Suddenly so quiet. Usually, she's the most energetic one here. You can't even stop her. Being called out like that. Anna, who had been trying so hard to maintain her cool, aloof demeanor all evening, almost cracked. She quickly took a sip of soup to cover her embarrassment. When she looked up again, her expression was back to normal. I'm not. I'm always like this. And Wyatt, hearing Leo's words, almost choked. He cleared his throat and said with a composed expression, yes, me too. Their attitude left the other 4 at the table completely baffled. Leo shook his head and commented, it's like they've taken the wrong medicine. Beside him, Kevin joked, they look like a new couple meeting the parents for the first time, all shy and nervous. He cracked himself up. As he was laughing, he suddenly felt a tap on his foot under the table. He looked down. Annie-cakes, why are you kicking me? Sitting diagonally across from him, Anna smiled sweetly, her tone light and airy. It's nothing. I was just making sure it was you. Kevin was even more confused. It is me. Why did you need to make sure? OWW. Before he could finish, a foot shot out from under the table and kicked him squarely in the shin. Tonight's biggest victim at the dinner table. No contest. During this exchange, Claire had remained silent, but her eyes darted back and forth between her childhood friend and her best friend's sister-in-law, a thoughtful expression on her face. She saw the embarrassed, flustered look on Anna's face, and she saw the way Wyatt, across from Anna, was trying to act calm and composed, but kept nervously taking sips of water. A small smile played on Claire's lips. I see. Interesting. After dinner, it was just past 7. The opening ceremony broadcast started at 8 o'clock sharp. They had about an hour to kill. Everyone sat on the sofa in the living room, chatting idly. Wyatt, intrigued, wanted to check out the study. Mr. Sterling used to have quite a collection of antiques. He went in. A moment later, he came out, his pupils shaking. Wait, where did the wall full of antiques go? Did this place get robbed? Anna was sitting next to Leo, the two of them playing a simple card game. As they played, Anna casually asked Leo about Mako Entertainment. Then, as if by accident, the topic shifted to Wyatt. Leo didn't think anything of it. He told her a few things, like how he had met the brokerage kid, how he was now in charge of the programming department, how he was so diligent and enthusiastic that he even volunteered to pay the company his salary every month. Of course, when Anna asked for more details, Leo didn't have much else to say. He waved his hand. I haven't known him for that long. You should ask your sister-in-law. They're childhood friends. Just then, Claire came over with a fruit platter and sat down next to Leo. Hearing his words, she raised an eyebrow and smiled at her best friend's sister-in-law. That's right. Wyatt the punching bag, and I go way back. If there's anything you want to know, just ask me. Anna looked up and met Claire's teasing gaze, saw the playful curve of her lips. Even though it was nothing, she suddenly felt a little flustered and quickly looked away. Oh, there's nothing I want to know. I was just asking casually. But Claire continued to smile at her. Really? Just casually? Anna kept avoiding her gaze. Yeah. Why are you looking at me like that? I've got nothing to hide. She was so flustered she couldn't find the right words. She randomly grabbed a handful of snacks from the coffee table, not even looking at what they were, and stuffed them in her mouth. She mumbled, "Never mind, my mouth is tired from talking. I'm just going to eat something." Beside her, Kevin stared at Anna in horror. "Annie Cakes, you're eating the class president's handmade cookies." Anna's mouth made a series of metallic crunching sounds as she struggled to chew and swallow. I know. I just love cookies. So good. After paying the painful price of chewing through Chef Sue's handmade cookies, Annie Cakes had, for the moment, narrowly managed to keep her little secret safe. In the living room, while waiting for the Olympics opening ceremony to start, the conversation drifted elsewhere. Kevin looked around, not seeing the familiar figure of Mr. Joe, and asked about him. Leo and Claire couldn't give a clear answer. They were also curious why the retired Special Forces veteran was sick again. Kevin was quite disappointed not to see Mr. Joe. Last winter break, here in this very villa, he and Leo had been put through a brutal training regimen by the veteran in the basement training room. At first, it was torture, but later, they had actually started to enjoy it. During the semester, whenever he had free time, he would practice the moves Mr. Joe had taught him. He had been looking forward to showing off his progress this summer. Hearing Kevin talk about it, the others grew interested. The opening ceremony broadcast wouldn't start for a little while anyway. So, they all got up and headed downstairs to the training room to spar a little. The familiar basement of the Sterling Villa. The familiar spacious training room, fully equipped with all kinds of exercise gear. Anna excitedly pulled Tessa over to admire the fitness equipment. She picked up a dumbbell and gave it a heft. Then she grabbed a long sword from the weapons rack and swung it around a couple of times. Finally, she shook her head in disappointment. Doesn't feel right. A beer bottle is still more my style. The beer bottle, the designated weapon of choice for the Wallace family. Kevin eagerly challenged Leo to a match, striking a pose and boasting. "Come on, Leo. I've been practicing all semester. Don't blame me if you lose." 3 seconds later, with a thud, Kevin was on the ground, having been taken down by a beautiful shoulder throw. He was dazed and seeing stars. Leo dusted off his hands and said modestly, "You let me win, you let me win." Practicing alone was no match for having a dedicated sparring partner. A special thanks was owed to a certain Miss Zhao, who had selflessly contributed to the mastery of Leo's shoulder throw. While Leo and Kevin were sparring, Wyatt was also looking around the training room. His eyes swept across the space, and he sighed with a mix of nostalgia and dread. It feels like coming home. It really did. This was the place where he had been beaten up since he was a child. Just looking at it now brought back phantom pains. The culprit was standing right next to him. Wyatt couldn't help but sneak a glance at Claire. Claire noticed his gaze and turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "What? You want to have a go?" Wyatt was taken aback. Then he laughed and waved his hands. "What's the point in us sparring? We're all grown up now. If I fought you, it would just be bullying." The heir of the Way family was demonstrating his gentlemanly conduct. Claire tilted her head and looked at her childhood friend, a smirk on her face. Scared. That one word was all it took. Wyatt practically jumped. Scared? What do I have to be scared of? Demonis Sue. Let me tell you, I'm not the same person I was back then. The days of you throwing me around until I had nightmares are over. I'm a gentleman who doesn't fight with women, but if I did, I could take you down in a heartbeat. He's triggered. JPG. Claire's lips curved into a smile. She gracefully walked to the center of the room and beckoned to him. Come on, let's see. The others gathered around. Tessa and Anna cheered for Claire. Go, Claire. Go, sister-in-law. Kevin was a little worried. Hey, how can a girl fight a guy? Wyatt, you have to go easy on the class president. Leo looked from his girlfriend to Wyatt, calculating that if this kid so much as scratched his wife or made a single hair fall from her head, he would sue him for the entire Way family fortune. By this point, Wyatt had walked up to face Claire, full of confidence. All right, don't say I didn't give you a chance. I'll give you the first 3 moves. Claire nodded slightly, her expression light. Okay. The next moment, her eyes sharpened. She shot toward her opponent. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of him, her hand grabbing his right arm. She pulled, but Wyatt reacted instantly, sinking into a low stance, his body as solid as a rock. He didn't budge. It seemed Claire's first attack was about to be easily nullified by the difference in strength between them. Wyatt was already grinning triumphantly. 30 years the river flows east, 30 years it flows west. Demonis Sue, I told you, you're no match for me now, haha. His laughter died in his throat as he heard a soft voice whisper in his ear. You like Annie cakes? 5 words. Wyatt's heart skipped a beat. His scalp tingled, his mind went blank. In that moment of distraction, the hand he was about to use to grab Claire's arm went limp. At the same instant, Claire seized the opportunity. She swept her leg out, tripping him and throwing him off balance. She stepped forward, grabbed his arm, turned, and twisted her hips. Wyatt, snapping back to reality, was horrified. Holy shit, wait. It was too late. A perfectly executed, practiced shoulder throw. Thud. The heir of the Way family was slammed onto his back, completely disoriented. The onlookers were stunned. Kevin looked at Claire as if she were a god. Holy shit, is she a Jedi Master? Tessa gasped. The former literature rep of Northwood High, at a loss for words, could only manage one. Badass. Only Anna was ecstatic, her eyes shining. Wow, sister-in-law, you are my hero. Claire calmly dusted off her hands and glanced at Wyatt on the floor. Kid, you've still got a lot to learn. Then she strolled back to her boyfriend. Leo had faintly heard Claire say something to Wyatt and asked curiously, What did you just say to him? Claire said nonchalantly, Nothing. Then she smiled. Just got some new leverage. She looked at her boyfriend, her mood bright. Good news. We can blackmail him with confidence from now on. Daily request for comments and gifts. The martial arts tournament had concluded successfully. The champion, Bertha Sue, was in high spirits as she took her boyfriend's hand and went upstairs. Kevin and Tessa followed. Anna was about to go up as well, but before she did, she turned and glanced at Wyatt, who was grimacing as he climbed to his feet. She pursed her lips and said, You seemed tougher last night. Wyatt, who had just gotten up, was about to argue out of sheer embarrassment. No, it was Demonis Sue who fought dirty, who knew she would say. He stopped mid-sentence as he looked up and met Anna's clear, questioning gaze. A wave of guilt washed over him. He swallowed the words he was about to say and admitted defeat, his head hanging low. Yeah, I was no match for her. Everyone went upstairs and settled on the sofa in the living room. It was exactly 8 o'clock. They turned on the TV. The live broadcast of the Olympics opening ceremony had already begun. The familiar sight of 1,000 drummers beating their instruments in welcome. As the lights dimmed, the drumheads glowed, forming a giant countdown, drawing gasps of excitement from the tens of thousands of spectators in the Bird's Nest Stadium. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When the countdown ended, the stadium erupted in light. Fireworks exploded in the night sky, and the crowd roared. The opening ceremony performance began. From the unveiling of a giant scroll depicting the 4 great inventions to a living, breathing display of movable type printing, the performers, in their specially designed costumes, brought the 5,000-year history of their civilization to life in a magnificent, sweeping ink wash painting. The audience, both in the stadium and watching on their screens at home, was mesmerized. National pride and cultural identity soared to their peak. In the living room of the Sterling Villa, everyone on the sofa gasped and exclaimed in admiration. Even Leo and Claire, who had seen it all before in their past lives, were completely engrossed, not bored in the slightest. Besides, this time, they were watching with their friends and loved ones. It was a different feeling, fuller and happier. As if their thoughts were connected, Claire unconsciously snuggled closer to her boyfriend. Leo, in turn, held her a little tighter. She looked up at him, a smile on her face. She tilted her head back slightly. An invitation for a kiss. Leo leaned in and stole a quick kiss. A small, intimate moment between them while no one was watching. While the lethal and savage couple was being cute, Kevin and Tessa were also cuddled up on the sofa next to them. Everyone had someone to hold. Beside them, Anna glanced at her brother and sister-in-law, then at Kevin and Tessa. She turned and reached into the birdcage, pulling out Reasonable. The parrot, who had been happily watching the broadcast a second ago, suddenly found himself in Anna's arms. Squawk! Confused parrot. JPG. On the other side of the sofa, Wyatt had already been staring in disbelief at the affectionate display between the lethal and savage couple. Even though he was slowly coming to terms with the fact that they were dating, seeing Demonis Sue act so cute and cuddly with her boyfriend was still a massive shock to his system. He felt like his eyes were going to bleed. The Demonis actually had such a girly side. To protect his eyes and his heart, he had to look away. He turned his head and saw Kevin and Tessa snuggled up together. He just raised an eyebrow, unfazed. His heart was as calm as still water. But then his eyes fell on the figure of the young woman sitting alone on the floor, leaning against the sofa. And the proud air of the Wei family felt a strange pang in his heart. He was unconsciously reminded of that warm embrace in the night wind on the street corner, and seeing the parrot now nestled in her arms. He felt a strange, almost envious emotion. A thought even crossed his mind. What if it wasn't a parrot being held? Before he could control his thoughts, Anna, sitting on the floor with Reasonable, seemed to feel his gaze and turn her head. Their eyes met in midair. They both froze for a moment. Then they quickly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the opening ceremony. But their expressions and movements were now slightly unnatural. Reasonable, nestled in Anna's arms, looked suspiciously at Wyatt, then at the Grand Princess holding him, and offered a helpful reminder. Heart rate increasing. Heart rate increasing. The next second, Anna stuffed one of Chef Sue's handmade cookies into his beak, hissing in a low, embarrassed voice. No one will think you're mute if you don't talk. The parrot, gagging on the cookie, almost choked. He flapped his wings frantically. Death, death! After the opening ceremony, everyone was satisfied. They chatted about it, expressing their pride in their country's growing strength and their excitement for the upcoming games. Time flew by as they talked. Around 11, Kevin and Tessa decided it was time to leave. Wyatt and Anna also got up. Leo and Claire had wanted Anna to stay the night, but her luggage was still at the hotel. She said she would go back for the night and bring her things over tomorrow. So, the four of them left the villa together. They stood by the road, waiting for a taxi. Kevin and Tessa caught one first. The couple exchanged a meaningful look, then waved a righteous goodbye to Wyatt and Anna, saying they would head out first, and that Wyatt should keep Anna company for a little while longer. Then they quickly got in the car and left, not wanting to be third wheels for a second longer, leaving the two-star festival drinking buddies behind. The summer night air was cool, just like the breeze on the street corner last night. Under the soft, yellow glow of the streetlights, the atmosphere was quiet. A man and a woman stood by the road, not saying a word. Finally, another taxi pulled up. Wyatt flagged it down and opened the back door for Anna. It was a natural, gentlemanly gesture. Anna pursed her lips slightly. She walked forward, but as she was about to get in, she paused and turned back to Wyatt, saying in a casual, offhand way, "By the way, last night I was just a little drunk, and it was an accident. That's why I hugged you. It didn't mean anything, so don't worry about it." Wyatt paused for a moment. Then his expression returned to its usual calm composure. "Yeah, I know. It was just a bit of happenstance and coincidence." Anna nodded, satisfied with his answer. She repeated, her voice a little firmer, "Right? Just a coincidence." The dog days of August were here, and the sun was scorching. The heat shimmered in the air, blurring the edges of the world, and the leaves on the trees hung limp and exhausted. The 2008 Beijing Olympics were in full swing, broadcast live from across the world. For the next few weeks, no one felt like going out. They were all content to camp out in front of the TV, basking in the air conditioning and watching the athletes compete for glory. Leo and his friends were no exception. The two couples and their coincidental drinking buddies had made the Sterling's villa in Coral Court their home base. After breakfast, they'd migrate to the living room couch and settle in for a day of live events. Mrs. Fong, a gold medal housekeeper in her own right, would periodically bring out trays of desserts or a huge, ice-cold watermelon, already sliced into perfect cubes. With the AC blasting, snacks and drinks in hand, they'd cheer on the athletes, their days passing in a state of blissful comfort. Of course, amidst the relaxation, Leo didn't let his work slide. With Wyatt in town, the two of them would often disappear into the study to discuss future updates and patches for the Battle Through the Heavens browser game. planning new dungeons and gameplay features. Kevin Zhao, the newest employee of Mako Entertainment, would naturally join in, offering his own ideas. It had to be said, while Kevin had his shortcomings, he was a top-tier, hardcore expert when it came to online gaming. He consistently offered valuable insights from a player's perspective, earning frequent praise from Leo. Kevin would beam, trying to stay humble. "Oh, it's nothing, really." He'd say, "I'm still new. I have a lot to learn from Mr. Wei. To be honest, I'm just here for the experience. With my friendship with Leo, the salary doesn't matter. I do it for free, not like Mr. Wei. His programming skills must make him one of the company's top talents. I bet you're making a ton, right?" He slapped his chest, showing his loyalty while subtly flexing his connection to the boss in front of his new colleague. Wyatt's reply was hauntingly calm. "I don't get a salary." He paused. "I pay the company." Kevin's brain nearly short-circuited. Huh. Once the words registered, he stared at Wyatt as if he were looking at some kind of alien. Seriously? Is the competition at Mako Entertainment this insane? Speaking of insane competition, the reigning champion was still going strong. Even with summer vacation more than halfway over, Isabella Zhao, the head of Mako Entertainment's art team, was still diligently clocking in every single day at the company's office on Kongping Road. While the rest of her team went home for the weekends, Ms. Dazed and confused was their Saturday and Sunday, rain or shine. Her Happiness social media account was a testament to her dedication, updated daily with photos. Not selfies, but a steady stream of work-in-progress shots. She was one step away from tagging her boss in every post just to show him how hard-working his #1 employee was. Then she heard that Wyatt Wei was in Northwood, spending every day from morning to night with her boss and his girlfriend. Isabella's sense of crisis went into overdrive. That cunning bastard. At this rate, her position as the company's top employee was in serious jeopardy. So, she began her own campaign, bombarding her boss with phone calls and relentlessly reporting on her progress. One of these calls came when Leo was in the kitchen washing fruit. He didn't hear his phone ring, but Kevin, passing by, picked it up. "Hello, who's this?" Isabella, on the other end, was taken aback. "Who are you?" "I'm Kevin Zhao," Kevin replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Isabella blinked. Question mark. A moment later, it clicked. She hung up in a huff. "Scammer. If you're Kevin Zhao, then who's my boss? Do you think Isabella Zhao is that easy to fool?" Kevin stared at the dial tone in his ear, utterly baffled. Leo came out of the kitchen with a bowl of fruit and saw his friend staring blankly at his phone. "What's up?" After getting the story, Leo took the phone and called his #1 workhorse back. Before he could even think of a new lie, Isabella's triumphant voice came through the speaker. "Boss, someone just tried to scam me, pretending to be you. But don't worry, I was super smart. I didn't fall for it at all." Leo was instantly relieved. You're the smartest. Keep it up." The long vacation in the small town of Northwood continued as it always had. Only now the group had expanded from 4 to 6, making things even more lively. As for the pair of coincidental drinking buddies from the Star Festival, besides some awkwardness on their first day at the villa, they had quickly fallen back into a comfortable rhythm. One of them started calling Anna Annie Cakes, just like Kevin did. The other, taking a cue from her older brother, started calling Wyatt Little Wei in a mock-serious tone. "Annie Cakes, pass the chips, thanks. Little Wei, we're out of soda. Go buy some at the convenience store." All politeness was gone. They were so comfortable with each other, it was almost ridiculous, practically ready to sling their arms around each other's shoulders and swear an oath of brotherhood. It was the same casual, easygoing way they both treated everyone else. But the more natural it seemed, the stranger it felt. In private, Tessa pulled Anna aside. "You really don't have any feelings for Wyatt?" she whispered. "He's a good guy. Don't let this turn into a buddy-buddy thing." Anna just waved her hand, her tone light, as air. "I'm really not interested. I told you, I've lost the ability to like someone. I was born to be single." Meanwhile, Claire had a similar chat with Wyatt. The third-generation heir of the Wei family, walking in with a case of drinks, seemed completely unconcerned. "Forget it. It's better to be friends. Why drag someone else into my mess? My life is destined to be a tightrope walk." His voice was calm and resigned. He didn't get to finish. Suddenly, the world spun, and before he knew it, his childhood friend had executed a perfect shoulder throw, slamming him to the floor. Wyatt lay there, dazed and confused. "What? Why'd you throw me again?" Claire dusted off her hands nonchalantly. "Nothing. Someone was being stubborn. It was annoying me, so I let off some steam." Wyatt scrambled to his feet, still defiant. "I'm not being stubborn. I'm serious." Claire shot him a sidelong glance. "Serious? You swear you're not interested in Annie Cakes?" Wyatt declared, I swear I have no intention of ever falling in love in my entire life. And what if you do? Huh. In the next second, Claire had produced a pen and paper as if by magic. If you do fall in love, she said, holding it out to him, you give me your entire family fortune. Deal? If you got the guts, sign it. Wyatt was speechless, then snatched the pen in frustration. Why wouldn't I have the guts? Fine, I'll sign. A few moments later, Leo was in the kitchen preparing dinner when his girlfriend walked in, humming happily and waving a piece of paper. What are you humming about? You look happy. Find some money. Claire waved the paper at him. Yep, I found the way, family. Leo just stared. Question mark. A couple of weeks flew by. The little Olympics watching party in Northwood grew even closer. The main reason was the heat. It was too hot to go outside. So they stayed cooped up in the Sterling Villa, watching sports, eating, enjoying the AC, and playing cards. Aside from sleeping, they were together almost 24 hours a day. It might sound like a waste of their youth, but youth was a luxury only the young could afford to squander so willfully. Besides, it wasn't like they were completely idle. Every day, like clockwork, Leo, Wyatt, and Kevin would disappear into the study for meetings, discussing the future of the battle through the Heavens game. The girls would lounge on the living room sofa, drinking tea, eating snacks, and chatting, occasionally glancing toward the study. Those guys, Tessa said, having just returned from delivering a fruit platter to the study. She smiled as she talked to Claire and Anna. They're actually pretty dedicated when they get to work. It's good to see. A guy needs to have some ambition. Kevin was always so lazy back in school, but now that he has something serious to do, he seems like a different person. Her voice was filled with pride and happiness. The conversation turned to Kevin's new role, setting up a Mako entertainment branch in Portland. Tessa looked at Claire. Hey, once the office is set up in Portland, you guys can come visit more often. We'll get to see each other more. Otherwise, once we're back at college, we'll only see each other during winter and summer breaks. It's not enough. Her tone was tinged with reluctance. She really would miss them. Because just as quickly as it had begun, the massive spectacle of the Beijing Olympics was drawing to a close. For the college students, summer vacation was ending, and a new semester was about to begin. August 24th, the Olympic closing ceremony. On August 26th, Kevin and Tessa had to leave Northwood and head back to Portland. Before they left, the group made a rare trip out, going to Pop's Fry Shack at the foot of Beacon Hill Park for a farewell dinner. Fried skewers and beer were served, and they all raised their glasses to toast their departing friends. That night, for once, Kevin didn't order cheap vodka. He stuck to beer, pounding his chest, and making a solemn promise to Leo. Leo, don't you worry. I swear I'll give my all to get the Portland branch up and running. I won't let Mako Entertainment down. Leo clinked his bottle against his friends and smiled. No pressure. Just go for it. Find a space, build the team, and I'll send you the first round of funding. Claire nodded. And if you need more money, you could just ask Wyatt. Wyatt, who had been happily munching on a fried skewer, looked up in confusion. What? What's this got to do with me? Claire glanced at him, her expression serene. The company is opening a new branch. Isn't it perfectly reasonable for an employee to show some support? The third-generation heir of the Wei family slammed his hand on the table. How is that reasonable? Before he could finish, Bertha soon magically produced a slip of paper from thin air, waving it casually. Oh, where did this come from? And what's this bet written on it? Anna, curious, leaned over. A bet? What kind of bet? Wyatt lunged across the table, frantically trying to stuff the paper back into Claire's bag. And nothing. Haha, I was just kidding. Opening a new branch is great. Of course I have to show my support. It's reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. Coincidence suffered a crushing defeat. Reasonable claimed an easy victory. The current version remained dominant. August 27th. That morning, it was Wyatt's turn to leave for Berkeley. School didn't start for a few more days, but the Wei family heir was a busy man with other matters to attend to. He said his goodbyes at the villa in Coral Court, waving coolly to the group. He told Leo he'd see him back at the office to talk business. To Claire, his pupils were practically vibrating with fear as he whispered pleas for mercy. For the sake of our childhood friendship, please stop torturing me. I'll get on my knees and beg if I have to. When he turned to Anna, his suave demeanor returned. Any cakes, I'm taking off. Anna was sitting on the couch, cuddling the chubby parrot and watching TV. Hearing Wyatt's farewell, she casually turned her head and waved back just as coolly. Bye-bye. Let's hang out again sometime. Then she turned right back to the TV, completely unaffected by the departure of her drinking buddy from the Star Festival. Reasonable, however, poked his head out from Anna's arms and eyed the young master at the door. The clever parrot's little brain whirred with analysis and deduction. He concluded that this unlucky fellow had a chance of becoming the future husband of the Wallace family's grand princess. So, he flapped his wings and offered a generous farewell of his own. "Farewell, Prince Consort. Farewell." Before he could say more, an indignant Annie Cakes shoved a small cracker into his beak, stuffing it so full his eyes went wide. Gack! Gack! Death! Death! That afternoon, Anna had to leave too. Leo and Claire helped her with her luggage and hailed a cab. Anna got in, rolled down the window, and waved enthusiastically at her brother and sister-in-law. "Claire, I'm going. Remember to miss me. See you in Berkeley. Leo the pig, whatever." The taxi pulled away. As they watched it disappear down the road, Leo shook his head. They both bought tickets for the same day. Why didn't they just travel together to make it easier? I guess there really is nothing going on between them. But Claire just smiled. "The fact that they didn't buy tickets for the same train," she said, "is what makes it more suspicious." Leo was confused. "Huh? What do you mean?" Claire turned and looked at her boyfriend like he was an idiot. It was both exasperating and amusing. "With that dense brain of yours, how did you ever get a girlfriend?" Leo puffed out his chest, completely unapologetic. "That's easy. It was all perfectly reasonable." Claire laughed and took his hand. "Yes, it really was. In 2 days, they had seen off their best friends, their sister, and their childhood buddy. Now, it was just a Mako power couple left in Northwood. The house suddenly felt empty and a little melancholy. They looked at each other. They're all gone, which means no more third wheels." A knowing smile spread across both their faces. "Want to go back inside and rest for a bit? Let's go." In their last few days in Northwood, life for the young couple settled back into a peaceful routine. Without the lively chaos of their friends, the two of them enjoyed a quiet, comfortable rhythm. During the day, they read books, watched TV, and occasionally stopped by the Sweet Return Bakery to help Susan with the shop. At night, they alternated between staying at the Sterlings and the Wallaces. By now, Robert and Susan were completely used to their intimacy and had adopted a liberal, open-minded approach. As for a certain chairman of Sterling Holdings, his opinion didn't matter. Besides, with a reliable big brother figure looking out for them in Northwood, the chairman could rest easy. On their very last day, before heading back to school, Claire made a request. "Take me to Mount Jade again." The last time they came to Mount Jade was right before their freshman year of college. A year had passed in a flash. This time, returning to the familiar spot, there were no best friends with them, just the two of them. They expertly brought along a tent and camping gear, planning to spend the night. They set up camp on the same clearing halfway up the mountain. One of them pitched the tent while the other gathered firewood. Then they started preparing dinner, one chopping wood while the other prepped the ingredients. Their teamwork was flawless, born of a deep, unspoken understanding. After a flurry of activity, a simple but fragrant campfire meal was ready. They sat on small stools in front of the fire, held up a camera, and leaned in close for a few selfies, which they planned to upload to their joint Happy Nest account. On that note, the Happy Nest social media platform was growing at an incredible rate, with user loyalty increasing by the day. After the national sensation of the Olympics, Happy Nest had seized the opportunity to invite a host of star athletes to join, pulling in another massive wave of traffic. It was already starting to feel like the Twitter of its day. At the same time, regular users were becoming more attached to the platform, using it to update their daily lives, interact with friends, and find like-minded people through various topic forums. Some accounts, thanks to the owner's good looks or creative content, had already amassed a considerable number of followers, showing the first signs of an influencer culture. While it wasn't yet the sophisticated monetization ecosystem of the TikTok era, some clever users were already finding ways to generate income through this emerging platform. This would gradually become the new model for the relationship between users and the platform. When their interests were intertwined, both sides would work together for mutual benefit. A prime example was Isabella Zhao. Her Happy Nest account now had over 100,000 followers. While she wasn't taking on brand deals or directly monetizing her fame, she still actively posted photos every day. Besides her not-so-subtle goal of proving her loyalty to her boss and securing her top spot at Mako Entertainment, her other motivation was to convince her followers to click the promotional link for Garden Grab. This brought her an extra daily bonus of in-game fertilizer. She wasn't making money. She was just doing it to be better at a game. In turn, this drove an unexpected surge of new users to Garden Grab. It had to be said, Isabella's devotion to the game was unshakable. Leo was even considering giving her a Lifetime Achievement Award for being an honorary user. The Reasonable Couple account that Leo and Claire had created now had over 200,000 followers. The photo of them as Aragorn and Arwen from the anime convention had gone viral. Even without any deliberate promotion, just a few mentions from fans on the forums, their follower count had soared. Another thing to note was that their joint account didn't feature many clear photos of their faces. It was mostly just simple, everyday snapshots of their lives. Nothing was meant to be attention-grabbing. At most, there would be a picture of their backs or a blurry profile shot. Otherwise, their follower count would have been 3 to 5 times higher. This drove their fans crazy in the comment section. Guys, enough with the daily life stuff. Give us some thirst traps. Some face pics. Please. Care what they said. Besides the people begging for photos, the reasonable couple comments were home to 2 other factions. The first was the reasonable party. Initially, people followed the account for the Aragorn and Arwen cosplay and were confused by the name. Leo had posted a simple explanation, saying it just meant that them being together was reasonable and logical, with no deeper meaning. But the fans ran with it. Every post was flooded with comments. Reasonable. So reasonable. New followers were utterly confused. What's with all the reasonable? Did we just join a cult? The final faction stood in direct opposition to the reasonable party. The instigators were most likely Berkeley students. You could guess what they posted. For every 2 reasonable comments, one would inevitably pop up. Screw Northwood High. The 2 factions battled it out in the comments daily, occasionally interrupted by the photo beggars relentlessly pleading, "Just one face pic, guys." It was a lively and harmonious community. Night fell. The couple left their campsite and hiked to the summit. The sky was cloudless, filled with a brilliant spray of stars. The air at the peak of Mount Jade was cool, with a slight chill in the wind. Leo draped his jacket over his girlfriend's shoulders. Claire watched him, her mind drifting back to the hug they had shared on this very peak a year ago, a warmth that had felt like it brought her back to life. A gentle smile graced her lips. She turned and looked up at the vast expanse of stars, feeling as if she were basking in her mother's tender gaze. Leo reached out and gently pulled her into his arms, a silent gesture of comfort and companionship. The night wind on Mount Jade couldn't disperse the warmth between them. Instead, it seemed to carry the girl's soft whisper up to the heavens. "Mom," she said, "I'm so happy right now." Leo stood beside her, also looking at the stars, and spoke softly. "Mom, don't worry. I'll always be with Claire. I'll make sure she's happy forever." It was a vow and a promise. The girl's eyes shimmered with soft, crystalline light as she tightened her grip on his arm. Then, as if remembering something, Leo looked back at the stars, his tone sincere. "By the way, Mom, your daughter is always pulling on my ear. If you have a chance, could you visit her in a dream and tell her to knock it off?" The mountaintop fell silent for a moment. Then a girl's voice, devoid of all emotion, cut through the quiet. "Leo, don't make me beat you up in front of my mother." August 31st, the last day before September. Leo and Claire were finally preparing to return to Berkeley. Early that morning, after they had packed their bags, Robert and Susan came downstairs to see them off. Before they got in the car, Susan held her daughter-in-law's hand, reluctant to let go. "Take care of yourself at school, okay? If you need money, just tell me. I'll transfer it to you." Now the proud owner of 3 bakeries, Susan Wallace had become quite the tycoon. She was already discussing plans with Claire to expand to Berkeley within the year. After all, the quality of their pastries was top-notch, and they had developed a successful service model centered around their lovely female staff. The business was already booming in Northwood. Furthermore, with the connection to Omnimart through their old friend Mr. Peterson, expanding to Portland and Berkeley was certainly feasible. According to Mr. Peterson, Omnimart's distribution channels were first-rate in both cities. They only had a couple of real competitors. Some chain called Happy Ovens, another called Bread Talk, and a local Berkeley brand, Gilded Phoenix Bakery. Wait, something in there sounded familiar. It didn't matter. Claire smiled at Susan's words. "Okay, when you open a bakery in Berkeley, Mom, I'll bring a ton of people to support you." It wasn't just polite talk. If her mother-in-law's business came to Berkeley, Claire could simply make a decision at Sterling Holdings to designate the Sweet Return Bakery as the sole supplier of refreshments for all company divisions. Forget regular employees. Even the current chairman would have to buy 100 pastries a day just to get by. Speaking of the chairman, Robert was furtively pulling his son aside. "When you get back to Berkeley, you and Claire just focus on your relationship. If her old man gives you any trouble, don't be afraid. You tell your dad. I'll handle it for you." Robert Wallace pounded his chest, looking immensely confident. Leo couldn't help but eye him suspiciously. Why is Dad so cocky lately? He's talking as if Claire's father is his little brother or something. Despite the endless farewells, they eventually had to leave. Waving goodbye to his worried parents, Leo and Claire, along with their chubby parrot, got in a taxi and headed for the train station. They had bought tickets for an early morning train and arrived in Berkeley by evening. From a station, they took the subway to the last stop, then hailed an unlicensed cab. 20 minutes later, the masters of the single slaughterhouse had returned to their glorious LNS house. After dropping off their luggage, they realized they were hungry. Having been away for nearly 2 months, there was no food in the house. Too tired to go grocery shopping and cook, they decided to grab a bite near the east gate of the campus. As September approached, the north was already hinting at autumn, but in a southern city like Berkeley, the summer heat still lingered in the air. The couple found a noodle shop near the east gate and ordered 2 bowls of noodles and a couple of pork chops. With their stomachs full, they entered the campus for a leisurely walk to aid digestion. The summer nights at Berkeley were hot and humid, but an occasional breeze offered a few moments of refreshing coolness. Walking side by side down a tree-lined path, Claire turned to Leo. Around this time last year, we had just arrived for orientation. Leo nodded, then corrected her. Orientation was already over by then. We had even celebrated the Star Festival. We were in the middle of freshman orientation training. Claire agreed with a nod, her gaze falling on a group of freshmen in orientation uniforms walking nearby. She smiled. Yeah, just like them. A year of college had passed without them even noticing. Now, they were sophomores, free to watch the new batch of freshmen suffer through their training. At this time of night, the freshmen had probably just finished dinner and were being led to the athletic field by their advisors for more drills. At least it was easier than the daytime sessions. No sun to bake under. They just have to practice standing at attention and marching, and then they could sit in circles and have singing competitions with other majors. Last year, Leo had been pushed by his classmates to perform with his guitar, stunning the crowd and causing quite a stir among the humanities freshmen. As they strolled and reminisced, Claire shot her boyfriend a sidelong glance. You must have felt pretty great being the center of attention like that. All those girls were swooning over you. Leo looked indignant. Were there? I didn't notice. When I was playing and singing, all I could think about was you. How to make your girlfriend happy. A masterclass. Claire raised an eyebrow, her tone light and airy. Such a smooth talker, but the corners of her mouth were already turned up. She leaned in and gave her boyfriend a kiss. But you're good at it. Keep it up. Under the lamplight of the campus path, their intimate moment was witnessed by a group of passing freshmen. The light was dim, and they couldn't see the upperclassmen's faces clearly, but that didn't stop them from letting out a collective gasp of inexperienced wonder. Holy shit. So this is college? Coming to Berkeley was the best decision ever. I'm definitely getting a girlfriend this semester, so I can kiss her. As the formation passed, some of the freshmen started gossiping excitedly about the beautiful girls on campus, rattling off rumors about legendary upperclassmen and the it girls of various departments. Thanks to the now ubiquitous Happy Nest, the incoming class had already done their homework. They had registered for accounts before arriving, found the university's topic forums, and easily looked up the recent Campus All-Stars contest, getting a head start on who the campus celebrities were. The most frequently mentioned name was, of course, Isabella Zhao, the recent winner of the Berkeley division of the Happy Nest Campus All-Stars contest. A sophomore from the arts department. Talented and beautiful. Rumor had it she was already leading an art team at a popular gaming company. A perfect blend of wisdom and elegance. Countless freshmen, both boys and girls, already idolized her, dreaming of one day seeing her in person. Leo, walking beside his girlfriend, heard the chatter and was utterly bewildered. Wisdom and elegance? Are they talking about Isabella, dazed and confused? Claire thoughtfully tapped her chin, recalling the image of a certain young woman landing on her, but after a shoulder throw, completely disoriented. Elegance. I don't think that quite fits. Leo shook his head emphatically. And wisdom is completely out of the question. She doesn't have any of that. After their walk around campus, they headed to the dorms. Leo and Claire went to their respective rooms, planning to do a quick cleanup of the dust that had surely settled over the summer before heading back to the LNS house. Leo dropped Claire off at the girls' dorm first. He had just started walking back to the guys' dorm when his phone rang. It was Claire. She told him that as soon as she got to room 205, she found her roommates had already returned. After nearly 2 months apart, their reunion was a joyous, chaotic scene. She had decided to stay in the dorm for the night instead of going back to the LNS house. Through the phone, Leo could hear the happy chatter of Quinn Liu, Molly Tang, and Jay Jiang in the background. Claire's been commandeered by us tonight. Leo, you can go back to 520 by yourself. Don't worry, Marco and Dylan are back too. You boys go have your own fun. Then came Claire's voice, seeking his approval. So, see you tomorrow? Leo smiled. Sure, see you tomorrow. They said their goodnights, and just before hanging up, he could hear the other girls urging her on. All right, hang up already. You two are practically an old married couple. You've been stuck together all summer, and you still can't bear to be apart for a minute. Come on, hang up. Whoa, Claire, have you gotten even hotter over the break? Let me feel. Ooh, your legs are so smooth. I want to feel too. I want to feel too. Then he heard a girl's startled cry, followed by a half-annoyed, half-amused reprimand. The call disconnected. Leo stood there, phone in hand, shaking his head. Why do I suddenly feel a sense of crisis, like my wife is being taken advantage of by someone else? He thought. I guess when girls get pervy, guys don't even stand a chance. Back at the guys' dorm, he pushed open the door to room 520 and was immediately greeted by the frantic clicking of mice and keyboards, accompanied by the excited shouts of Dylan, Leon, and Marco. Drop, drop, drop. Please, RNG gods, let this be the one. I'll trade Dylan's next 10 years of being single for a legendary weapon. Please. Leo walked in to see his roommates hunched over their laptops, furiously clicking away. On their screens was the familiar interface of the Battle Through the Heavens browser game. The three brothers of room 520 were running a group dungeon, taking on a mini-boss. The boss was down to its last sliver of health, and their eyes were gleaming with anticipation. Legendary weapon, legendary weapon. An accessory would be fine too. If Dylan's 10 years of solitude isn't enough, I'll throw him my appendix. Marco added. That crafty bastard. Even his wishes were strategic. Unfortunately for him, the heavens were clearly not interested in Marco's appendix. As the dungeon boss, the heavenly poisoned scorpion dragon beast, was defeated, it exploded in a shower of loot and materials. Leon, Dylan, and Marco practically pressed their faces against their screens, searching desperately. Not a single legendary item. The best they got was a pile of materials and a yellow rank cultivation method. All three of them slumped back in their chairs, utterly defeated. Damn it, it's over, it's all over. What the hell are these drop rates? Can the damn game designer please be human for once? Leo had been enjoying the show, but that last comment struck a nerve. It was one thing to play the game, but personal attacks were another story. He cleared his throat and spoke up righteously. Actually, there's nothing wrong with the designer. It's just that your luck is a little off. The trio from room 520 heard his voice and finally looked up, their eyes widening when they saw him standing there. Leo. Leo smiled and opened his arms. Miss me? It had been 2 long months. They had indeed missed their roommate dearly. In the next second, all three of them lunged at him with ferocious glee. Yeah, we missed you. Your daddies missed you to death. So you're the damn designer, huh? Get him, boys. They had found out last semester that Leo was the one who bought the rights to the game. When it launched over the summer, they had naturally shown their support by creating accounts. One thing led to another, and they got hooked, falling headfirst into the cursed game's bottomless pit. A whole month's allowance. I did several 30 pulls and didn't get a single S-rank skin. I finally grinded enough for a pity pull heavenly flame. And then the damn thing tells me I have to feed it rare spiritual treasures every day. And you have to get the treasures through the gacha system too. The more they talked, the more their grievances piled up. They looked at Leo, and their anger surged anew. Damn it, time for another beating. In the end, Leo emerged with his clothes disheveled and his hair a bird's nest, having promised to buy them breakfast for a week. Only then were Marco and the others satisfied. After their unique reunion, they all washed up and went to bed. The lights went out, and the classic late-night dorm talk began. They started with the game. Marco and the others asked if Leo had made a lot of money from its success. When Leo confirmed it, they were full of awe and envy, but not jealousy. They were genuinely happy for their friend. Then, the conversation shifted to that other eternal topic of male dormitories, girls. A new semester meant a new batch of freshmen, and the most anticipated arrivals were, of course, the beauties in each department. On this subject, Marco was in his element. Just like when they were freshmen, he had a comprehensive list of all the notable girls, and this year was no different. According to him, he had returned to campus several days early specifically to volunteer for the freshman welcoming committee. He had already compiled a detailed file on all the new girls in the humanities department. This year's class in humanities has a ton of pretty girls, he said, rattling off names with the confidence of an expert. And there's even an arts major who enrolled in the advertising program. Her looks are just incredible. He could list 8 or 10 names off the top of his head, and he even had intel on other departments. Names like Tia from math, Brianna from athletics, and Maya from engineering floated through the darkroom. Leon and Dylan listened with wide-eyed admiration, dreaming of a chance to see these legendary figures in person. Leo casually asked, How do they compare to Claire? The lively discussion came to an abrupt, dead silence. Then, the three of them simultaneously pulled their blankets over their heads in a synchronized motion of defeat. Let's not talk anymore. This conversation is over. Time for sleep. Compare them to Bertha's Sue? How could they possibly compare? They'd have to risk their lives just to try. The next morning, Leo woke up early. He got up, washed his face, and saw that the other three guys in room 520 were still sound asleep. He went around, tapping on their beds to ask what they wanted for breakfast. After getting a series of mumbled replies, he left the dorm amidst a chorus of ass-kissing. "We send off our father, and you're our real dad, father." The late summer morning air was cool and refreshing. Leo walked out of the dorm building and headed straight for the school cafeteria. It was just past 7 o'clock. Most of the upperclassmen who had returned to campus were still sleeping in. The paths were mostly empty. When he got to the cafeteria, however, it was already packed with freshmen in their camouflage orientation uniforms, forming long lines at every food stall. They all looked sleepy, yawning one after another. That was just how orientation was. After a quick breakfast, they had to head to the athletic field for another grueling day of training. Leo remembered his own freshman orientation last year and couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for them. While waiting in line for breakfast, he overheard a group of freshmen in front of him chatting. Coincidentally, they seemed to be from the humanities department. They started by complaining about how tiring orientation was, but the conversation soon shifted to the topic of beautiful girls in their department. Leo wasn't particularly interested. After all, you could add up all the other pretty girls in the world, and they still wouldn't be a match for his Bertha Sue. But the freshmen were talking excitedly. One of them, a student from the journalism program, was gushing about a girl named Yvonne Moreau. 10 out of 10 looks. 10 out of 10 charisma. 10 out of 10 figure, he swore to his friends. She's definitely the it girl of our year. No, wait. She could easily be the campus queen. Hearing the name, Leo's memory sparked. Yvonne Moreau. It sounded familiar. He seemed to recall Marco mentioning her during their late-night chat. She was a freshman in their humanities department, in the journalism program. She had apparently gotten the top scores in both the arts and academic entrance exams for the entire province. Instead of choosing a more prestigious art school, she had come to Berkeley. According to Marco's confident assessment last night, her looks, charisma, and professional potential were so high that she would probably be recruited by the provincial broadcast station long before graduation. In a few years, she could be the star host of a major TV program. Of course, at the end of his glowing review, Marco had added an objective footnote. She's impressive for a freshman, but still a step below Bertha Sue. So now, listening to the freshman in front of him, a small smile played on Leo's lips. This was the satisfaction of having an invincible campus queen for a girlfriend. No matter how beautiful anyone else was, they couldn't compare to his wife. TSK, this was almost embarrassing. Haha. After a long wait, he finally made it to the front of the line. He bought breakfast and left the cafeteria, but instead of heading straight back to his dorm, he took a detour to Building 16, the girls' dormitory. Standing downstairs, he pulled out his phone and called his girlfriend. Ring, ring, ring. After a few rings, she picked up. Her voice was sleepy and muffled, as if she were still buried under the covers. Hello. Leo smiled. Still sleeping? Come down and get some breakfast. I brought you some. Hearing that her boyfriend had brought her food, Claire woke up a little. She crawled out of bed, yawning, and told him to wait while she quickly washed up. So Leo waited patiently in front of the girls' dorm. Freshmen in their camo uniforms hurried past on their way to the athletic field for morning drills. As they passed, they saw Leo standing there with a bag of breakfast and couldn't help but whisper among themselves. Whoa, that upperclassman is delivering breakfast to a girl. Waiting outside her dorm this early? I guess our school has simps too. What a tool. Kinda sad, haha. Their whispers were a mix of pity and schadenfreude. Leo didn't hear them, and even if he had, he wouldn't have cared. He heard footsteps in the stairwell and looked up to see his girlfriend coming down. Claire had just woken up and quickly washed her face. She was wearing pajama pants and a large t-shirt, her uncombed hair tucked under a pink baseball cap. Her face was completely bare, yet it couldn't hide her stunning, flawless features. Her skin was as white and translucent as fine porcelain. The freshmen on the path caught a fleeting glimpse of her profile under the brim of her cap and were so stunned they nearly turned to stone. Holy shit, I must have woken up too fast. Is that an actual angel? Then they watched in disbelief as the angel walked out of the dorm, straight up to the tool, waiting for her. She took the breakfast bag, then stood on her tiptoes and gave him a generous kiss on the lips. The freshmen's jaws dropped. The smug smiles on their faces froze. The schadenfreude vanished. Wait, what happened to the simp? The tool? She just kissed him. For bringing breakfast? Is the return on investment that high? Damn it, if we could get a kiss from an angel like that for bringing breakfast, we'd do it too. 3 meals a day, 60 meals a day, we'd do it. Their hearts were filled with a bitter mix of envy and despair. Suddenly, an advisor's angry roar echoed from a distance. What are you dawdling for? Anyone who's late has to march 20 laps around the field. The freshman snapped back to reality and scrambled toward the athletic field. In front of Building 16, Leo and Claire turned to watch the retreating figures. Claire commented casually, full of energy. Leo nodded in agreement. He handed her a cup of soy milk from the other bag. Here, take this too. Be careful, it's hot. Claire hummed in acknowledgement and took it naturally. Having delivered breakfast, Leo prepared to head back to his own dorm. What's the plan for today? He asked. Claire covered her mouth with her hand and yawned, still sleepy. After I eat, I'll probably go back to sleep for a bit. I still have to write that speech for the welcome ceremony. The freshman orientation was followed by a welcome gala, the same routine as last year. Before the gala, there was a welcome presentation where upperclassmen representatives would speak to the freshmen, introducing their departments, answering questions, and officially welcoming them to the university. This task usually fell to outstanding sophomore representatives from each department. This year, the School of Business had assigned the duty to Claire Sterling. It was an obvious move. The school's administration knew exactly what the freshmen wanted. By sending out their flawless campus queen, a perfect blend of beauty and brains, they would easily outshine every other department. That's right. Even for a welcome presentation, interdepartmental competition was fierce. With Claire as their trump card, the leadership of the School of Business was already popping champagne in premature celebration. This round, we're invincible. Do your worst. Leo and Claire had done something similar during their visit back to Northwood High, so they had experience. But this presentation at Berkeley was a bit more formal and required a prepared speech. Leo offered his help. Need any ideas for your speech? Claire looked at him curiously. What kind of ideas? Leo adopted a righteous expression. Well, for a welcome speech, I suggest you mention that you already have a boyfriend. Tall, handsome, talented, and rich. To crush the hopes of any freshman who might be thinking of hitting on you. Before he could finish, Claire playfully smacked him. Stop with the terrible ideas. This is a serious presentation. After chatting with his girlfriend for a little while longer, Leo urged her to go back upstairs before her breakfast got cold. He then headed back to room 520 with the breakfast for his roommates. Since Claire was busy with her speech, Leo spent the day in his dorm, shooting the breeze with his roommates and playing a few rounds of the Battle Through the Heavens game. The first day back for their sophomore year was shaping up to be quite relaxing. Late that afternoon, Leo received a text from a group of Northwood High alumni, now freshmen at Berkeley. They asked if he was back on campus and if he wanted to get dinner, since their orientation had ended early for the day. They were his direct juniors from his alma mater. It was only right to look out for them. Leo readily agreed, telling them to gather their group and that he would treat them to dinner at a barbecue place near the East Gate. After sending the text, he called Claire to let her know. She was halfway through her speech and had planned to finish it that evening. But when she heard it was a dinner for the Northwood freshmen, she happily agreed. Okay, come pick me up later. We'll go together. At 5:30 that evening, Leo left room 520 and went to Building 16 to pick up his girlfriend. A few minutes later, Claire came downstairs. She was dressed casually, as usual, with her hair in a single ponytail, wearing her familiar pink baseball cap with the letter S. A loose t-shirt and jeans completed her simple, clean look. In the summer heat, Bertha Sue usually opted for comfort and convenience, favoring this slightly tomboyish, sporty style. The long brim of her cap often hid most of her face. But even so, her tall, slender figure and undeniable charisma were impossible to conceal. An occasional glance from under the brim, revealing her stunning features, was enough to make anyone's breath catch in their throat. Only a woman with a perfect score in both looks and charisma could be so effortlessly confident. Leo, of course, was used to it, and it was better this way. It saved him the jealousy of seeing other guys on campus staring at his girlfriend, mesmerized. The beautiful, sexy, and alluring outfits, not to mention certain professional uniforms, were for his eyes only back at the LNS house. He couldn't let anyone else have that privilege. Speaking of which, staying at his parents' or the Sterling's house in Northwood had made certain things inconvenient. Now that they were back in Berkeley, he needed to find a way to persuade Bertha Sue to try on a few more stimulating outfits. If necessary, he could even ask Isabella to sketch some designs and have them custom-made. As his mind drifted, Claire noticed him staring off into space. She waved a hand in front of his face. What are you thinking about? Leo snapped out of it, his expression once again perfectly righteous. Nothing, just that it's getting cold, and I was thinking of getting you some new clothes with less fabric. Getting cold? Clothes with less fabric. Claire tilted her head. Question mark. A question mark appeared above her head. She looked at him suspiciously, then reached out and pinched his ear. Leo winced. Hey, I'm just showing concern for you. Why are you pinching me? Claire was unapologetic. You're definitely up to no good. A preemptive punishment is never wrong. After a bit of playful bickering, they arrived at the barbecue restaurant by the East Gate, the agreed-upon meeting spot. It was the same place where Leo and his roommates from 520 had their first dinner together as freshmen. It was on the wall of this very restaurant that he had seen an ad for a hardware store, which had inspired the nickname Bertha Sue. As they walked in, they saw that the Northwood freshmen had already arrived. 6 guys and 4 girls, a group of 10, were seated at 2 long tables pushed together in a corner. When they saw Leo and Claire, they waved excitedly. Leo, Claire, over here. They all looked so bright-eyed and innocent, like they would thank you for selling them out. All right, it's like seeing a row of Isabella dazed and confused, Leo thought. Leo and Claire sat down and greeted them with smiles. They had all met during the Northwood High Campus tour and had even spent some time together over the summer, with the freshmen acting as free beta testers for his game. They were all comfortable with each other. After ordering, while waiting for the food, Leo and Claire asked about their first few days at college. The freshmen chattered excitedly, sharing their impressions. The Berkeley campus was so much bigger than Northwood High, they kept getting lost. The orientation advisors were super strict, and their legs ached from marching all day. They also dutifully reported that they had kept their Northwood origins a secret, and so far, no upperclassmen had found out. Leo and Claire were slightly relieved to hear this, but they still reminded them, keep it up. This is very important for your safety. Changing the subject, Claire asked with a smile what other interesting things they had seen. A few of the guys perked up. Oh yeah, there's so many beautiful girls in our freshman class. They immediately launched into a detailed report, with special emphasis on a certain Yvonne Moreau from the Humanities Department, praising her to the heavens. As if afraid Leo and Claire wouldn't believe them, they all pointed to one of their friends. Ask Alex Zhang. He's seen her in person. He has the most authority on this. The student named Alex Zhang, who was also in the Humanities Department, puffed out his chest. It's true. My orientation group is right next to Yvonne Moreau's. I've seen her several times, even in the same camo uniform and hat as everyone else. You can spot her in a crowd instantly. It's the difference between a celebrity and a regular person. According to Alex's vivid description, after just a few days of orientation, Yvonne Moreau's beauty had already caused a sensation among the freshmen. Many of her peers, and even some upperclassmen, were already coming to the athletic field just to catch a glimpse of her. Some of the bolder ones had even tried to confess their feelings with flowers. His story piqued the interest of the others at the table. And then what happened? Alex waved his hand dramatically. Total annihilation. Every single one of them was shot down. Inside the barbecue restaurant, the pork belly sizzling on the hot plate released an irresistible aroma, but the group was too engrossed in the gossip to even pick up their chopsticks. Alex Zhang, who had enrolled in the journalism program, recounted the tale with a professional flair. Since he was in the same department and program as the now famous Yvonne Moreau, he had more concrete, first-hand information than anyone else. According to him, in the last few days, Yvonne had accumulated countless admirers. More than a dozen had already made their move and confessed their feelings. Among them were outstanding upperclassmen, handsome and wealthy guys, and even some who had arrived for orientation in luxury cars. But regardless of their looks, wealth, or qualifications, they all met with the same fate: rejection. The girl, now widely acknowledged as the #1 beauty of the humanities freshman class, and possibly the entire university's freshman class, turned down every confession, whether it was gentle or passionate. She was polite but firm, leaving no room for ambiguity. Then she would immediately turn her attention back to orientation, standing at attention and marching under the scorching sun with unwavering focus. She never used her looks to seek special treatment. In fact, she did everything with such dedication that no one could find fault with her. This only earned her more respect and admiration, and in turn, more affection. After the story was finished, the other freshmen at the table couldn't help but marvel. Is she really that perfect? It sounds like she doesn't have a single flaw. Alex insisted, it's true. I'm not exaggerating at all. One of my roommates worked up the courage to confess to her. He brought a box of chocolates, but when he went up to her, she just looked at him calmly, and he got so nervous he couldn't speak. She didn't take the chocolates, just politely said thank you and that she appreciated the thought. He came back in a daze, and when he thought about it later, he figured even though he got rejected, at least he got a thank you out of it, so it was worth it. This little anecdote gave everyone a deeper understanding of Yvonne Moreau. Wow, she sounds really intimidating. Definitely not someone an ordinary person could approach. Then, one of the girls at the table asked with interest, "Hey, you're praising her to the skies, but how does she compare to Claire? Who's prettier?" The lively atmosphere at the table suddenly fell silent. The group of Northwood freshmen exchanged glances. Then, including the girl who had asked the question, they all burst out laughing. "Ha, is that even a comparison?" "Exactly. When it comes to looks and charisma, who can beat Claire? Anyone who tries would just get crushed." Even Alex, who was in the same program as Yvonne, replied without a moment's hesitation. "No matter how beautiful Yvonne Moreau is, she can't compare to Claire. Claire is the most beautiful." His last two sentences were a bit loud. A few upperclassmen from Berkeley were sitting at the next table. They had overheard the name Yvonne Moreau, the hot topic among the freshmen, and then heard the subsequent comment. They shot a sidelong glance at the group. Who's so arrogant that they'd dismiss the new-it girl of the humanities department so easily? Then they saw the familiar face under the pink baseball cap. Their eyes widened in recognition, and they slowly turned back to their own table. "Our apologies. That one can definitely be as arrogant as she wants." Claire, however, just smiled faintly. "Since when did you all learn to flatter people? There's no need to compare. I don't care about that kind of thing." It was true. Campus queen, department-it girl. To her, these were just empty titles. The opinions of others didn't matter. As long as the person she loved only had eyes for her, that was enough. As she thought this, a gentle smile graced her lips, and she turned to look at the boyfriend sitting beside her. Said boyfriend, however, was completely absorbed in his barbecue, happily stuffing his face. Feeling her gaze, he looked up confused. "What are you looking at?" Completely ignored the gossip about beautiful girls. Focused entirely on eating, Claire was both amused and exasperated. She gave his head a light smack. "You pig, all you do is eat." The freshmen were talking about a new beauty. "You'd better watch yourself. Don't let me catch you flirting with any pretty new girls." Leo continued to eat, unconcerned. "No way. I'm not interested." Claire eyed him skeptically. "You might not be interested, but you seem to have a magnetic field that attracts it girls." Lily Liu, Isabella Zhao, they had all come to him of their own accord. The freshmen at the table overheard, their curiosity piqued. "What it girl?" "Leo, you know other it girls?" When they heard Isabella Zhao's name, their eyes lit up. "Isabella, Zhao, Leo, Claire, can you introduce us?" She was number 1 on the Happiness Campus All-Stars list for Berkeley. Leo, who was placing a piece of grilled meat on his girlfriend's plate, waved his hand dismissively. "You don't want to know her. She'll just make you dumber." After a satisfying dinner, Leo and Claire walked the freshmen back to campus. Before parting ways, they patiently reminded them once again to keep their Northwood High identity a secret for their own safety. After seeing them off, the couple took another walk around campus. Claire was still thinking about her unfinished welcome speech and wanted to go back to her dorm to work on it. Leo walked her back. On the way, they chatted about everyday things like whether they should have lunch together the next day and doing a big clean of the LNS house over the weekend. The topic of the beautiful new freshman, Yvonne Moreau, which had so captivated the freshmen, held no interest for them. For one, no matter how pretty she wasn't as pretty as his wife. For the other, no matter how pretty she wasn't as pretty as her. And a third point for the latter. No matter how beautiful the campus queen was, she wouldn't be able to make a single wave in her boyfriend's life. Claire was quite confident in Leo Hammer Wallace's level of cluelessness. Just ask Lily Liu, who never got a home-cooked meal, or Isabella dazed and confused, who was defeated in one move. Even if a real Yvonne Moreau showed up, Claire was actually quite interested to see what kind of epic failure would result from a collision with her titanium alloy clueless boyfriend. The freshmen were still in the middle of orientation, but on September 2nd, the sophomores had to start classes. That morning was a class meeting. After a whole summer apart, the students of the advertising program gathered in the classroom, greeting each other warmly. The girls clustered together, chattering about their latest makeup discoveries and recommending new beauty influencers they'd found on Happy Nest. The guys, on the other hand, were all talking about games. More than half of them were die-hard fans of the battle through the Heavens novel. When the browser game launched over the summer, they had all become avid players. Their conversation, however, wasn't about sharing strategies, but about commiserating. "Damn, the game designer is such a scammer." I had to empty the entire gotcha pool just to get a heaven-rank cultivation method. He's not even human. As they talked, their shared frustration grew, and they all wished they could find the game designer for a friendly chat. Marco, Leon, and Dylan from room 520 listened to their classmates' complaints while shooting sidelong glances at Leo. Yeah, I really wonder who the damn designer is. If we ever caught him in person, that guy would be in for a world of hurt. Leo's expression didn't change. Indeed, too bad we don't know who he is. Oh, I heard his last name is Zhao. A few moments later, their advisor, Alex, walked in. He greeted the class with a wide smile, welcoming them back for the new semester. He gave a brief overview of the semester's curriculum and the various school activities planned for September. He also mentioned that their program would have a major advertising competition and a startup project this semester, which interested students could sign up for. Winning would earn them extra points for scholarships and their GPA. The guys from room 520 huddled around Leo, whispering, "Leo, you should submit your Battle Through the Heavens game for the startup project. You'd win the championship in a heartbeat. The only consequence would be becoming the public enemy of the entire school and being chased down by angry players." Leo rubbed his nose uneasily. "I think I'll pass." His life was more important. He wasn't particularly interested in any student startup competitions. However, when Alex mentioned that the university had built a new student entrepreneurship center, it did give him an idea. Maybe he would check it out later. That afternoon, they had a new professional course, Consumer Behavior. The class was on the new campus. Leo didn't have time to have lunch with Claire, so he gave her a call. She told him she would eat at the cafeteria with her roommates and try to finish her welcome speech in one go. Orientation would be over in 2 days, and her presentation was right before the welcome gala. After cheering his girlfriend on, Leo hung up and went with his roommates and classmates to the campus parking lot to catch the shuttle bus to the new campus. At the parking lot, just across the fence, was the athletic field. They could see neat formations of freshmen in their camouflage uniforms, marching under the hot September sun. The advertising students looked over with interest, pointing and commenting. They were, of course, talking about the pretty new freshman girls. Rumor had it that their department had a new it girl who was even more stunning than Lily Lou from last year. Marco, who was already on the bus, stuck his head out the window and yelled, "All right, stop staring. All you single losers, get on the bus." The other students were furious. "Hey, you're single too. Friendly fire, huh?" They grumbled and cursed, but their bodies obediently filed onto the bus. The afternoon class on the new campus, Consumer Behavior, was painfully boring. The professor lectured passionately for an hour and a half, but the students were all nodding off. College hadn't taught them much knowledge, but they had developed at least 5 or 6 different ways to sleep in class. His mom would never have to worry about his insomnia again. Leo, however, wasn't sleepy. He wasn't really listening either. The professor's voice became a dull background noise as he doodled in his notebook, planning the next steps for Happy Nest and Mako Entertainment. Happy Nest was progressing steadily. There was no need for any major changes in direction. They just needed to continue expanding their user base and maintaining the site stability. Trying to do too much too soon by adding new features would just make the site cluttered and hurt the user experience. As for Mako Entertainment, the Battle Through the Heavens browser game was on a stable track. He didn't need to put too much thought into developing new dungeons. The advantage of a browser game was its simple, fixed gameplay. He could just reskin old dungeons to create new ones. There was no rush to add new gameplay modes, either. He had to consider the players' wallets. He couldn't fleece them all at once. But if he decided not to invest more in research and development for the game, his programming and art teams would be left with nothing to do. Idle employees? Getting paid for nothing? That was an insult to his self-proclaimed status as a conscientious capitalist. His conscience wouldn't allow it. How guilty and ashamed would his dear employees feel, getting paid without working? Leo decided to solve this problem for them. And, as a person reborn, an idea quickly came to him. The class ended at 3:30. Leo habitually went to the art department studio next door to look for his #1 workhorse. No, his #1 general. She wasn't there. The studio was empty. Then it hit him. Over the summer, Mako Entertainment had secured their office space. Isabella had been posting posed photos from the office on her Happy Nest account every day. She was probably there now. So he left the studio, went to the campus gate, hailed a cab, and gave the driver the company's address on Kongping Road. 20 minutes later, he arrived. He went upstairs and pushed open the glass door. The office was a clean, spacious open-plan area with a few potted plants. The Mako Entertainment sign was hung by the door, simple and clear. The room was filled with workstations, but no one was there today. The programmers from Happy Nest who were helping out only came by occasionally, and could do most of their work remotely. His own team members were busy with the start of the new semester and would probably trickle in over the next few days. The large office was quiet and peaceful, but in the distance, by the floor-to-ceiling windows with the best view, he saw a familiar figure comfortably lounging on a beanbag chair. A pair of slender legs were propped up on a desk. She was holding a laptop, completely engrossed in a game of garden grab. She looked blissfully content. Leo cleared his throat. The girl on the beanbag chair didn't look up. She just waved a small hand. Just put the bubble tea over there. I don't have any change, so you'll have to make some. Leo's mouth twitched. I can't make change. I'll just deduct it from your salary. Huh, that voice sounds familiar. The girl on the beanbag chair instinctively turned her head. The moment she saw who it was, she shot up like a startled deer. Be boss. In a flash, she kicked the beanbag chair aside, slammed the laptop shut, and hid it behind her back. She forced an eager smile. Boss, you're here. Why didn't you say anything? I would have come down to greet you. Her voice was a little shaky. Leo looked at her. Living the good life, I see. Isabella shook her head vigorously. No, I wasn't slacking off. I'm very diligent. I finished all my work before taking a short break. The game is already launched, so there isn't much to do right now. You can't blame me for that. Leo nodded understandingly. Reasonable. My bad. Then, he kindly handed her a freshly prepared project proposal. So, I prepared a few new tasks for you. Now you can be busy again. Don't worry. You'll be even more fulfilled than before. Isabella looked like she had been struck by lightning. Even more fulfilled than before. Her vision went dark. The world was ending. So this is the punishment for getting caught slacking off by the boss. I'll never do it again, I swear. After pulling herself together, she took the proposal, took a deep breath, and cautiously glanced at the paper. A question mark appeared above her head. New development direction for the battle through the heavens, IP. Auto chess. Boss, what's auto chess? Leo's tone was casual. Oh, you can also call it heavenly tactics. He didn't bother explaining the specific details of auto chess or heavenly tactics to Isabella. It would be too complicated, and with her intellect, she probably wouldn't get it right away anyway. Instead, Leo just listed out the initial art requirements for the new game project. Essentially, she had to take all the existing character, item, and skill assets from the browser game and create a new set of icons, as well as new miniaturized, Q-style versions of all the character portraits. Just make everything cuter, the heartless capitalist instructed his #1 workhorse. That's about it. Isabella didn't even hear the rest. The words create a new set were enough to make her vision go black again. Again, it sounded simple, since she had the original art to work from. But creating a Q-style version meant redoing everything from scratch. It was no shortcut. The thought of her brief, idyllic period of slacking off coming to such a swift and brutal end filled her with despair. This is exploitation, she cried. Leo held up 3 fingers. 30 days. For the first draft. Isabella was stunned. 30 days. Why don't you just go hire sweatshop labor in Africa? Leo's 3 fingers didn't move. Plus a 30% quarterly bonus. Isabella instantly snapped to attention, saluting sharply. Who needs sweatshop labor when you have me? Boss, you're too generous. 30 days, you got it. I guarantee I'll get it done. With Isabella handled, Leo took a quick tour of the new Mako Entertainment office, then left satisfied. The idea to create a battle through the heavens version of a popular auto chess game had come to him during his consumer behavior class. With his team's current skill level and size, developing a large-scale PC game was still out of reach, and the development cycle would be too long. But an auto chess game was different. It was simple to make. The only real difficulty was in the game design and balancing the various stats. But he could just copy the template from the game he remembered from his past life. That would give him a solid foundation. For the finer details, he could collaborate with Potato, the author. They could create a draft and then run internal tests to balance the gameplay and stats. And with Kevin now setting up a research and testing team in Portland, the timing was perfect. Once the team was assembled, their first task would be to repeatedly test heavenly tactics. The job was a perfect fit, a seamless transition. The Mako Entertainment office was on Kongping Road, just a few hundred meters from Happiness headquarters on Wanning Road. After leaving Mako, Leo took a leisurely stroll over to the Happy Nest office building. As he walked in, he noticed a lot of new faces. Happy Nest was expanding rapidly, and the 3-story building they were renting was already starting to feel crowded. Many of the new employees had never seen him before. The new receptionist, a pretty young woman who looked like a recent college graduate, stopped him politely. She was poised and had a sweet, innocent face. Seeing a guy even younger than her walk in so casually, carrying a backpack, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of interest. But she had a job to do. "Hello, this is the headquarters for Happy Nest. May I ask the reason for your visit?" she asked with a smile. Her tone was polite, but since she was talking to someone who looked like a kid, it was also relaxed. Before Leo could answer, Owen Wu, the deputy head of the tech department, walked out from the main office. He saw Leo, and his eyes lit up. "Hey, little President Lin." He rushed over and grabbed Leo's arm warmly. "Haven't seen you in 2 months. Don't tell me you're here for inspection. The big boss was just talking about you. Come on, let's go upstairs for the meeting. We can talk about the department budget, and you can put in a good word for us." The receptionist was stunned. "A little President Lin?" Owen glanced at her and raised an eyebrow. "All right, you're new. This is our company's CSO. Don't make the mistake of stopping him again. It's embarrassing." Leo smiled at the flustered receptionist and waved his hand. "It's fine. You're just doing your job diligently. Keep it up. Just keep my identity a secret from outsiders." He then brought a finger to his lips in a playful, shushing gesture before following Owen upstairs. The receptionist watched him go, her mind reeling from the shock. Before joining the company, she had been one of the prettiest girls in her class. Now, thinking about the handsome young president and the charming way he had shushed her, her heart fluttered. She remembered all the legendary stories about him that circulated around the office, how everyone looked up to him with such admiration. A hopeful thought sparked in her mind. "He smiled at me. He was so gentle. We're around the same age. I wonder if I have a chance." Just then, Hannah Ling, the head of the tech department and now part-time financial manager, walked by with a stack of financial reports. She saw the new receptionist staring dreamily at Leo's retreating back and pursed her lips. "Don't even think about it. You don't have a chance." The two of them were friendly, so the receptionist didn't bother hiding her feelings. But she was a little defiant. "Why not? Do you like him too, Hannah? Even so, I'm not afraid of the competition." Hannah rolled her eyes. "Don't drag me into this. I wouldn't dare. If you're interested, your competition isn't me." The receptionist was confused. "Then who is it?" Hannah was in a hurry to get to the meeting. She just tossed a quick reply over her shoulder as she headed upstairs. "Search online yourself. East Bay University Comic and Anime Fest. Aragorn and Arwen." After Hannah left, the curious and defiant receptionist pulled out her phone and typed in the keywords. When a photo from the event popped up on her screen, the image of Arwen in all her ethereal glory, the receptionist froze. Crack! That was the sound of her competitive spirit shattering into a million pieces. As luck would have it, today was the weekly executive meeting at Happy Nest headquarters. When Leo and Owen Wu headed upstairs, the large conference room on the second floor was already packed with mid- and high-level employees, all listening to David Chung speak. Seeing Leo push the door open, David Chung gave a slight nod of acknowledgement before continuing to brief his subordinates on the work tasks for the new quarter. Leo casually pulled a chair into a corner and sat down to listen. The meeting's agenda was mostly a rehash of things he and David had already settled on over the phone. Happy Nest business was now split into two main sectors: the social media platform and the gaming platform. The latter had initially driven the first wave of user traffic to the site with mini-games like Garden Grab, the Name Compatibility Test, and Friend Trader. Now, with the joint launch of the Battle Through the Heavens browser game, it had become the company's biggest source of cash flow. The success of the Battle Through the Heavens game was a case study in itself. It had shown other domestic internet game developers the immense potential of the Happy Nest platform. Inquiries had already started trickling in from other companies, testing the waters and expressing interest in launching their own games on Happy Nest. On this front, Leo and David had already talked it over. They agreed to allow third-party games, but they would have to pass a quality screening. Furthermore, any game hosted on the platform would naturally have to give Happy Nest a cut of its revenue. The other sector, the social media platform, remained Happy Nest's primary focus. The strategy was twofold. First, cultivate in-house influencers to produce high-quality content. Second, spend money to attract celebrities, actors, and athletes to the platform to continue drawing in external traffic. It was a two-pronged parallel approach, clear and well-defined. Specific plans, and even a list of target individuals had already been compiled into detailed documents. After summarizing everything, David Chung added lightly, "All of this has been discussed and finalized with Mr. Wallace in advance. Don't hesitate," he finished. "Just execute." That one sentence was enough to jolt every manager in the room to attention. They responded in unison, "Understood." If it was a decision Mr. Chung had made on his own, they might have mulled it over a bit. But if the young Mr. Wallace was involved in the decision, What was there to even think about? Just get it done. This was the authority Leo had built within Happy Nest. His track record of solid victories had earned him the unwavering respect and loyalty of every employee, from top to bottom. After the meeting, David Chung took a sip of water to soothe his throat. He watched Leo walk over and asked casually, "Anything to add?" Leo grinned. "No, Mr. Chung, you nailed it. Perfectly articulated." The compliment earned him an eye roll from the older man. "Cut the flattery. You're just using me as your workhorse while you kick back and relax." They joked for a moment before David remembered something, his brow furrowing slightly. "Right," he said. "Our current strategy is almost identical to the plan you sold to Nexus for their Weibo project. They're gearing up to launch this quarter. When that happens, we'll be in direct competition. If nothing else, when it came to recruiting celebrities and actors to the platform, a powerhouse like Nexus had far deeper pockets than Happy Nest." Leo nodded. "Yeah, you're right. Which is why in the first two versions of the proposal, I forgot to include that suggestion." David Chung? Completely straight-faced, Leo added, "We'll move quietly and try to sign exclusive contracts with everyone on our list within 3 months. By the time they realize what's happening and try to poach them, it'll be too late." David Chung sucked in a sharp breath. "You can do that." Leo's expression was the very picture of righteousness. "I'm just an ordinary college student writing a complex business proposal for the first time. It's perfectly reasonable that I might overlook a suggestion or two, right?" David's eyes lit up with schadenfreude. He slapped his chief strategy officer on the shoulder. "Reasonable," he declared. "It's so damn reasonable." The managers who hadn't yet left the conference room overheard the exchange between their two bosses. Their faces twitched. "That's reasonable?" They were like two peas in a pod, a pair of scheming villains. "You're reasonable. He's reasonable. Why don't you two just form a reasonable couple? Having two such treacherous bosses. It feels." The managers exchanged glances, their faces breaking into identical, gleeful grins. "Absolutely fantastic." Leaving Happy Nest headquarters, night had begun to fall. Leo took the subway back toward Berkeley's old campus, then hailed a cab from the last station. It was nearly 7 in the evening by the time he finally got back to school. He called his girlfriend on the way to his dorm. Bertha Sue and her roommates had already eaten dinner. She was in her room, putting the finishing touches on a paper that she expected to finish tonight. Leo had his own work to do. He needed to start drafting the rules for Heavenly Tactics Auto Chess. The couple chatted for a bit, made plans to have lunch together the next day, and then hung up. Back in room 520, Marco, Dylan, and Leon were still glued to their computers, deep in the world of the battle through the Heavens browser game. Leo went to his own desk, pulled out his laptop, and powered it on. He created a new document. After gathering his thoughts for a moment, his fingers began to fly across the keyboard. In this life, Heavenly Tactics was about to appear more than a decade ahead of its time, its first incarnation taking shape in room 520 of Building 37 on the Berkeley campus. The next morning, Leo, an early riser, was up and washing his face at the crack of dawn. His 3 roommates, who had stayed up late playing the game, were still passed out in their beds. He had promised to get them breakfast for a week, and Leo was a man of his word. He left the dorm and made a beeline for the dining hall. He was even earlier today than yesterday, so the freshmen hadn't arrived yet, and there was barely a line. Clara told him last night not to bring her anything, so Leo just ordered 4 servings of bagels and coffee for himself and his roommates. He swiped his student ID to pay and walked out of the dining hall with a full bag of breakfast. It was a bit awkward to carry, so he stuffed 3 of the orders into his backpack, leaving just his own in his hand. Much easier. He decided to swing by the campus convenience store to pick up some drinks and snacks. Just as he was about to walk in, a graceful figure was walking out. She was moving quickly. Leo didn't have time to react, and they nearly collided. The breakfast in his hand almost ended up pressed against her, but luckily the bag was sturdy and nothing spilled. Leo instinctively started to apologize. He looked up and saw her face. She was a tall, slender girl, likely a freshman given the orientation uniform and camouflage hat she was wearing. A cascade of dark hair fell from under the brim of her hat, partially obscuring her face, but couldn't hide her exquisitely picturesque features. Even without makeup, her skin was as clear and white as porcelain. She had a stunning, striking beauty, but it was tempered with a cool, aloof aura that would make most people first stare in awe, then feel an intimidating sense of reverence. Leo was slightly surprised. The thought that popped into his head was reflexive. Wow, she's gorgeous. Like, next-level gorgeous. At the same time, the girl looked up at Leo, then at the breakfast bag he was holding practically against her chest. She seemed to have misunderstood something. She shook her head gently, her tone polite but firm. Senior, it's fine if you want to be friends, but you don't need to buy me breakfast. Now. Before he could process what was happening and explain, the girl thought for a moment, then reached out and took the breakfast bag from his hand. She pulled a $20 bill from her pocket, placed it in his hand, and said, just as politely, I'll take it this time. But I can't accept it for free, so consider this me buying it from you, Senior. Please don't do this again. Her tone was calm, but carried the weight of a well-intentioned lesson. Then, without giving him a chance to respond, she turned and walked away, breakfast in hand. Leo was left standing there, a question mark hovering over his head. He glanced at the $20 bill in his hand, then at his now empty other hand. He did a quick calculation. That breakfast had only cost about $6. A $14 profit. Not bad. He happily accepted the outcome, a little amused. That freshman, she's actually pretty nice. The little episode outside the campus convenience store was nothing more than a minor, ordinary interlude for Leo. The freshman he'd bumped into was beautiful, but not so much that he'd dwell on it. After all, the most beautiful girl at Berkeley was his girlfriend, and they had a lunch date later. The second most beautiful was currently slaving away for him, working her fingers to the bone. Frankly, if the freshman hadn't been so generous as to slap $20 into his hand, he would have chased her down to get his breakfast back in a heartbeat. But now, things were different. An unexpected windfall. With $20 in hand, Leo strolled into the convenience store. After a moment's thought, he generously splurged a whole $7 on a hot dog, 2 pork buns, and a cup of hot milk to replace the breakfast he'd lost. Then, in high spirits, he returned to the men's dorm. Back in room 520, he woke his snoring roommates and distributed the food. Dylan and Leon, munching on their delicious breakfast, showered their provider with praise. Marco, however, looked at the milk, hot dog, and buns in his hand with a curious expression. Wait a minute, he said. Why is my breakfast different from theirs? Dylan and Leon looked over curiously. Hey, you're right. Looks like yours cost a bit more, too. Marco looked at Leo with deep, heartfelt emotion. Leo, I knew it. You love me the most in this dorm. Leo, busy eating his own breakfast, mumbled a reply. Oh, nothing to do with me. You can thank a freshman for her generous contribution. They had a major class at 8:30 that morning. After washing up and eating, the 4 residents of room 520 rushed out toward the classroom building. On their way, they passed the South Athletic Field, where they could see freshmen in camouflage uniforms going through orientation drills behind a chain-link fence. They had probably just finished marching. The sun was beating down. The drill instructors had let their respective squads take a break in the shade. The freshmen, granted a reprieve, scrambled for comfortable spots under the trees and plopped down, a collective sigh of relief rising from the groups. On the tree-lined path outside the fence, the guys from room 520 glanced toward the field as they walked. Marco craned his neck, looking as if he wanted to phase through the fence to get a better view. Hey, I think the humanities students are all doing their orientation here on the south field. Yvonne Moreau has to be in there somewhere. At the mention of her name, Dylan and Leon perked up, craning their necks as well. Let me see. Damn, can't see clearly. Where's the broadcasting and television majors group? Leo found it all rather amusing. She's just one freshman. Do you guys really need to be this invested? Come on, we're going to be late. This was met with a chorus of righteous correction from his 3 roommates. What do you mean, just one? She's the top beauty of this year's freshman class. The new it girl of our department. Maybe even the whole school. Leo, you're a man with a full stomach who can't understand the starving man's hunger. Despite their protests, they quickened their pace, following Leo toward the classroom building. At that same moment, just on the other side of the chain-link fence under the shade of a nearby tree, the freshmen from the 09 broadcasting class were sitting in small groups, resting. Many who hadn't had time for breakfast were pulling out bread and crackers from their pockets, trying to refuel. In one corner, a few girls were sitting together, snacking on their own treats. But next to them, one beautiful girl sat quietly. Her features were like a painting, her temperament refined and otherworldly. Her skin was so fair and clear that she seemed to be drawn in a completely different art style from everyone else. Even in the same camouflage uniform, she easily stood out among a group of already attractive girls, drawing everyone's attention. Seeing the beautiful girl sitting alone and not eating, one of her classmates asked with concern, Yvonne, aren't you going to eat something? Yvonne Moreau smiled. It's okay. I already ate. Coffee, a bagel, and a breakfast burrito. I'm pretty full. Her answer surprised the other girls. A bagel and a burrito? You went to the dining hall to buy that? The lines are crazy long in the morning. You must have had to wait forever, unless you got up super early to stand in line. Then, one of the girls had a realization. I know. A senior must have gotten up early to bring it to you, right? The others caught on. That makes sense. That's our Yvonne for you. Being the campus queen of our year really has its perks. She even has suitors lining up to buy her breakfast for free. Their playful teasing was mixed with genuine admiration. But Yvonne shook her head and explained seriously, a senior did bring it. But I paid for it. I can't take advantage of people like that. Besides, it's not a good look, so I told him not to do it again. As she explained, the scene from that morning outside the convenience store replayed in her mind. She remembered how the senior had rushed and nearly bumped into her. His looks. He was actually quite handsome, but he seemed very shy. He was so nervous about giving her breakfast that he couldn't even get a word out. Thinking about it now, Yvonne felt a pang of guilt. Had her lecture been a little too harsh? After all, his intentions were good. But then she shook her head again. You have to be decisive and make things clear. Stringing people along with vague ambiguity was never her style. She had worked hard for 3 years in high school to get into Berkeley, not to date. She was here to better herself. So, no matter how many suitors she had, they couldn't sway her determination to strive for excellence. Even if a senior was handsome and his shy demeanor was something she didn't dislike, even found a little endearing, it didn't matter. She, Yvonne Moreau, had no interest in such things. If she had the chance, she would apologize for the slightly harsh tone she had used earlier. At a small restaurant outside the East Gate, Leo sneezed. Across the table, Claire looked at her boyfriend with a puzzled expression. Are you catching a cold? They had met up for lunch after their morning classes. The food hadn't even arrived, and he had already sneezed several times in a row. Leo rubbed his nose, looking equally perplexed. No, I think someone's thinking about me. Claire's eyebrows shot up. Thinking about you? Who's thinking about you? A freshman? Leo laughed and waved his hand. You're overthinking it. Where would I even meet a freshman? Then he remembered something and shared it as a funny story with his girlfriend. Oh, right, I did run into one this morning. Paid me $20 for a $6 breakfast. Listening to her boyfriend's story, Claire tilted her head, thought for a moment, and offered an objective assessment. Sounds like she's a bit of a ditz. That afternoon, the couple both had classes. After lunch, they went back to their respective dorms for a nap. When Leo returned to room 520, his roommates were already back at their computers, teamed up and grinding for materials in the Battle Through the Heavens browser game. Those guys were addicted. They had almost asked Leo for a few admin accounts to play around with, but then they decided against it, feeling it would ruin the fun of grinding for their own gear. The result was that they poured every free moment they had into the game. Sometimes, after a grueling boss fight, the drop rate would be abysmally low, and they'd get nothing. At that point, they would turn and viciously unleash their frustration on the damn game designer who happened to be right there in the room with them. So, seeing his roommates playing the game, Leo wisely made himself small in a corner, hoping they wouldn't take out their bad luck on him. Sitting at his desk, Leo opened his own laptop and pulled up the design document for Heavenly Tactics. He spent some time studying and mulling over it. His main task was to recall the rule templates from the classic auto chess games of his past life, which he could then adapt. He wrote down some of the rules based on his memory, then grabbed a notebook from the shelf and started sketching out some UI mockups. It would give Isabella a rough visual to work from later. Just then, Marco, Dylan, and Leon seemed to have finished a boss fight. They had gotten a drop. A chorus of exclamations erupted from the group. Leo reacted instantly, jumping to his feet, ready to bolt out the door at the first sign of trouble. Then he saw his 3 roommates high-fiving in celebration. He guessed they must have gotten something good. He relaxed and sat back down. Marco, in high spirits, came over. Leo, what are you up to? What's with all the drawings? Leo didn't mind sharing. He pushed the notebook toward Marco. Rough sketches for a new game. Chibi style. Dylan and Leon heard and came over curious. A new game. The Battle Through the Heavens game just launched. You've already got another idea, Leo? Marco was energized, volunteering enthusiastically. Need any help this time? I'm pretty talented when it comes to drawing. Leo glanced at Marco, remembering how his roommate's talent in their design class had nearly sent the professor scrambling for his heart medication. He politely declined. Not this time. Maybe in the next life. Marco's artistic skills, Lily's driving, and Claire's cooking were all disasters of conceptual level. A special menu reserved for the Queen of England. He had 2 classes that afternoon, English and P.E. The English class was a large lecture with several different majors combined. This semester, the advertising sophomores were in the same class as the broadcasting and television freshmen. Lily Lou was there, too. When she saw Leo in the classroom, the department's former girl gave him a familiar wave, and confidently came over to sit next to him. They chatted for a few minutes, catching up on their summer breaks. It didn't take long for Marco to sidle over, his expression eager. "Lily, I heard Yvonne Moreau is in your department. Do you know her?" Lily laughed. "Of course. She's a freshman in my major. We even have each other's contact info." It was perfectly reasonable that the past and present girls of the humanities department would know each other. But Lily shook her head. "Please, don't call me that anymore. Compared to Yvonne, I feel totally inadequate. Before I met her in person, I didn't think a girl could be that beautiful outside of celebrities on TV." Then, as if remembering something, she glanced at Leo and added, "Of course, a certain someone's girlfriend is the exception. Talk about anything else, and it was fine." But the moment the new freshman girl was mentioned, the other students in the classroom started to stir, inching closer to hear the gossip. Facing their expectant gazes, Lily just smiled and waved her hand. "For those of you with ideas, I'd just forget about it. I don't think Yvonne is planning on dating anyone right now." She thought for a moment before giving her assessment. "That girl, she's a very serious person. All she cares about is working hard and improving herself." The gossip session didn't last long. The English teacher arrived, and everyone returned to their seats for the lecture. In the blink of an eye, the 2-hour class was over. The bell rang, and students stretched, packed their bags, and prepared to leave. Lily was getting ready to go, too. Before she left, she remembered something and called out to Leo. "By the way, the department's freshman welcome gala is in a few days. The arts committee is swamped helping the freshmen with their acts. Cheryl Chun is exhausted and said she was going to ask you for help. She'll probably contact you today." Leo gave Lily an okay sign to show he understood, then slung his backpack over his shoulder and followed his roommates out of the classroom. His second class of the afternoon was P.E. University P.E. was much more relaxed than in high school. Each student could choose their own sport, and Leo and his roommates had all picked basketball. The teacher had them practice basic layups for a bit, then clapped his hands and announced free practice time. The guys from room 520 rounded up a few other classmates and started a half-court game. They hadn't touched a ball all summer, and they were sweating after just a few minutes. The September sun was scorching, making them even more parched. During a break, Leo went to the nearby campus convenience store to buy some drinks. He browsed the aisles, picking up a few bottles of water and soda for his friends. Then, in the cooler, he spotted a familiar can of imported watermelon juice. It was the same brand he used to buy at the Northwood High store, the one he had shared with his then-reasonable deskmate, Bertha Sue. Here on the Berkeley campus, that can of juice cost $10. Pretty expensive. Driven by nostalgia, Leo grabbed one and went to the counter to pay. With the can of watermelon juice in one hand and a bag of other drinks in the other, he started walking back to the basketball court. He had to cross the athletic field first. The freshmen on the field had just finished a round of drills and were collapsed in the shade, drenched in sweat. Leo glanced over, then turned his gaze back toward the court. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. He looked up. Whoa, a familiar face. It was the nice, generous freshman from this morning. Yvonne Moreau also saw Leo walking toward her, carrying drinks. She recognized him as the shy senior who had brought her breakfast that morning. She paused, slightly taken aback. Her gaze drifted down to the can of watermelon juice in his left hand. She paused again. A couple of days ago, she had casually mentioned to a classmate that she loved watermelon. She hadn't expected someone to pay attention to such a small detail. This senior, he was thoughtful. A flicker of emotion went through her. The words of refusal and lecture that were on the tip of her tongue vanished. She thought for a moment, carefully choosing her words, and spoke gently. "Senior, please don't do this again. This is the last time. It won't happen again." As she spoke, she reached out to take the can of juice from his hand, adding politely, "Thank you." But as she said it, she realized the juice wasn't moving. She paused again, confused. She pulled a little harder. Still nothing. She looked up at him with a questioning gaze, only to be met with Leo's equally perplexed expression as he held tightly to the can. "You haven't paid yet," he said. "Freshman, are you trying to rob me?" It was orientation week, and she was wearing a camouflage uniform. She hadn't bothered to bring any cash with her. Coming from a beautiful freshman, that perfectly reasonable explanation would have earned the unconditional acceptance and forgiveness of over 99% of all upperclassmen. Unfortunately, someone didn't fall into that 99%. You should have just said you didn't have any money. Leo, a man of titanium alloy directness, snatched the can of watermelon juice back. He even offered a piece of advice. "It's the Berkeley way. We don't take things from people for free." Then, with the juice in one hand and the bag of water in the other, he briskly walked away. As he left, He felt it his duty as a senior to offer one last helpful suggestion. There's a free water fountain on the east side of the field. If you don't have money, you can get some water there. His seniorly duty fulfilled, he walked away with his head held high. He left Yvonne Moreau standing there, stunned. She watched his retreating back, her mind still struggling to process what had just happened. In her 18 years of life, she had never encountered a member of the opposite sex who behaved like this. And yet, she couldn't find a single fault in his logic. But something still felt off. Yvonne frowned slightly. The brilliant mind that had earned her top scores in both the arts and academics in her home province began to churn. Soon, she arrived at a conclusion. While she had never experienced anything like this personally, she had seen similar tactics in television dramas. This move, it had to be a classic push-pull strategy. Once she figured that out, the senior's behavior made perfect sense. Yvonne's brow smoothed, and she shook her head slightly. I thought he was just shy. Turns out, aside from being handsome, he's actually a little bit clever. Having seen through his little game, Yvonne wasn't about to fall for it. Still, the memory of that handsome senior lecturing her with such a straight face was a little irritating. And she was thirsty, her mouth dry from the heat. The thought of the watermelon juice she didn't get to drink somehow made her even more annoyed. She took a slow breath to calm herself, her eyes clear and sharp. Impressive. So this is the power of playing hard to get. I almost started to actually care about that senior. Yvonne, you need to stay focused. Your mission in college is to study hard and become a better person. You can't let your mind be distracted by other people or emotions. Another breath. Her heart rate returned to normal. Yvonne turned, intending to go to the free water fountain on the east side of the field. Just then, another upperclassman came running up, holding 2 ice-cold sodas and wearing an eager, fawning expression. Freshman, orientation must be tough. Are you thirsty? Here, I brought you a drink. It's cold. Yvonne glanced at the senior in front of her. Average looking, a definite step down in looks and charisma from the handsome senior. She then glanced at the 2 sodas in his hands. Neither was watermelon flavored. Another step down in thoughtfulness compared to the handsome senior. She subconsciously made a comparison in her mind. Yvonne shook her head and spoke politely to the average-looking senior. No, thank you. I don't have any money with me, so I can't buy one from you, son. Senior. The average senior was stunned for a moment, then quickly waved his hands. No, you don't have to pay. It's just a few bucks. It's my treat. Yvonne raised an eyebrow. No, it's the Berkeley way. We don't take things from people for free. With that, she left the thoroughly lectured and utterly bewildered senior standing there, a blank look on his face. The campus queen walked past him, her steps feeling inexplicably lighter. She felt like she had just gotten her own back. Her mind was at ease. Nice. The rest of the afternoon P.E. class was spent playing basketball. After it ended, the 4 guys from room 520, drenched in sweat, went back to the dorm to take turns showering. Clean and refreshed, they emerged from the bathroom in fresh clothes, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. One look in a mirror was enough to send their self-esteem soaring. Holy crap, what's going on? Marco's voice echoed from the bathroom. I think I got even more handsome. The other guys replied with concern. Did the water wash your brain away? Marco, you really need to get that checked out. It was nearing dinner time. The guys were planning to try a couple of new restaurants that had just opened in the South Campus dining hall, which were rumored to have good food. After finalizing their plan, they turned to ask Leo for his opinion. Leo, you in? Leo was about to nod when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the message from his girlfriend and changed his answer. Nah, you guys go ahead. I'm eating with my Claire. The 3 residents of room 520. My Claire, JPG. He left the dorm. Just as he got downstairs, he saw a familiar, slender figure standing by the entrance. The evening sunset painted the sky in soft, brilliant colors, casting a warm glow on the girl standing there, making her look like a figure in an oil painting. Leo smiled and walked up to her, holding out his hand. What do you want for dinner? Claire naturally looped her arm through her boyfriend's, her tone light and casual. Whatever. Your treat. Listen to that. The heiress of Sterling Holdings, demanding someone else pay for her meal. What a scandal deal. Leo agreed readily. My treat. We'll get something expensive. The Berkeley way is not to take things from people for free. What kind of stupid rule was that? His Claire was, of course, the exception. A girlfriend taking advantage of her boyfriend wasn't a problem. It was perfectly reasonable. As for getting something expensive, campus food could only be so pricey. They found a small restaurant in the Wisteria dining hall, ordered 2 plates of cabbage and pork over rice, and 2 cups of sickeningly sweet 7-Up. The total came to $20. As he swiped his card, the number seemed familiar. It reminded him of that nice, generous freshman from yesterday. Then he thought about his second encounter with her that afternoon. He couldn't help but shake his head. The old saying was true. You can't judge a book by its cover. She looked like such a pretty girl, but to think she'd try to freeload a drink just because she didn't have any money. Unacceptable. He carried the tray back to their table, where his girlfriend was already setting out the chopsticks and wiping the table with a wet wipe. A wave of satisfaction washed over Leo. See, what did other girls matter? His wife was the best. After wiping the table, Claire looked up and saw Leo staring at her. She raised an eyebrow. What are you looking at? Leo answered with righteous confidence. My wife. She's beautiful. Claire nodded, pleased, and graciously allowed it. Fine, then you can look a little longer. After dinner, Leo asked his girlfriend if she had any plans. Claire tilted her head, thinking. She suggested, let's go to the library for a bit. A year ago, during their first semester, Leo and Claire used to frequent the school library. In the early days of their relationship, they wanted to be stuck together 24 hours a day. They hadn't bought the LNS house yet, so when it came time to study for finals, they would go to the library together instead of staying in their separate dorms. But during finals week, the library was a madhouse, and finding a single empty seat was impossible. That was what prompted the sterling heiress to angrily splash some cash. She bought the beach house directly from Mr. Chien. The single slaughterhouse welcomed its new masters. After they had the LNS house, the couple's trips to the school library became much less frequent. However, after a year of spending so much time there, they found themselves in a leisurely mood, interested in revisiting the library for a change of pace. The new semester had just begun, so the library wasn't crowded. The freshmen were still busy with orientation, and on the rare evenings they had off, they were more likely to collapse in bed than go out. Most of the students in the library were sophomores and juniors. A small fraction were there to seriously study. The majority were just there for the air conditioning or to use it as a date spot. Leo and Claire fell into the latter category. But they weren't just there to do nothing. They had each brought textbooks and their laptops. They entered the library, went up to the second floor, and found a dedicated study area. There was an open spot by a window in the corner. They quickly made their way over. As they walked through the aisles, other students would occasionally look up. They saw the couple walking toward them, hand in hand. The boy was handsome and sharp. The girl was coolly beautiful, so stunning it could make your mind go blank for a second. Some of the upperclassmen who were library regulars recognized the pair. They had seen them often last year. The moment of recognition sent a jolt through them. Holy shit, is the killer couple back in the library to slaughter the single people again? The lights were bright, the atmosphere quiet. The air was filled with the faint scent of paper and ink. The only sound were the scratching of pens and the low murmur of students discussing their work. This was the Berkeley Library. When you walked in and immersed yourself in it, you couldn't help but be infected by the solemn, academic atmosphere. You were moved by the focused dedication of the nation's top students studying all around you. For two top students like Leo and Claire, this environment was like water to a fish. They sat down at the table by the window and fell silent. A quick glance, a silent exchange, and they each took out their books and laptops and got to work. A couple didn't have to be flirting and teasing each other every minute of the day. Having each other's company while they worked hard was its own kind of happiness and contentment. Leo opened his laptop, pulled up the Heavenly Tactics design document, and after organizing his thoughts, began typing, his focus absolute. Claire opened her textbook and notebook, underlining passages and jotting down notes, completely absorbed. Time slipped by quietly. When they grew a little tired from concentrating, they would look up and meet each other's eyes, exchanging a smile. Or one would quietly reach out and take the other's hand, playfully toying with their fingertips. Everything happened in silence. It was a small, intimate game they both enjoyed, one that didn't disturb anyone else but brought them their own quiet joy. They had no idea that this scene was playing out for the other students in the study hall. It was enough to send another series of shockwaves through the room. Damn it, how can they be so sweet? Can little gestures be this lethal to single people? They were envious, jealous, and resentful. And through their resentment, they had to grudgingly admit that the two of them were a perfect match. One part of their brain told them to look away. The other part couldn't stop sneaking glances at the couple in the corner. Damn, watching a couple interact is actually really nice. I'm pathetic, man. I'm just pathetic getting this much joy out of watching their PDA. Someone even couldn't resist sneaking out their phone and taking a picture of the killer couple from a distance. The image was captured, framed within the screen. The male lead had his back mostly to the camera, only a hint of his profile visible. The female lead sat across from him, one hand propping up her chin, the other playfully fiddling with her boyfriend's fingers, looking thoroughly entertained. Even from a distance, the 8-megapixel camera phone could still roughly capture the girl's impossibly beautiful face. Even as a blurry outline, her beauty was breathtaking. The upperclassman who took the photo couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This was the one and only true campus queen of Berkeley. He decided then and there to post the photo to his Happy Nest account with the hashtag Berkeley Campus Queen. He wanted all the underclassmen who had been arguing over who was the most beautiful girl at Berkeley to see the truth. All those new freshman beauties. That Tian Wei from math and physics, Zhu Yitong from P.E., Meng Yameng from engineering. Oh, and that Yvonne Moreau from the humanities department who was making the biggest splash. In front of the great campus queen Sue, they could all take a step back. Yvonne Moreau walked into the library. She had changed out of her camouflage orientation uniform and was now wearing a loose, comfortable t-shirt, jeans, and a light hooded jacket. She carried a backpack. Standing in the main lobby, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, soaking in the rich, scholarly atmosphere of one of the nation's top university libraries. When she opened her eyes again, they were clear and bright. Her classmates, exhausted from a full day of orientation, were probably all collapsed in their dorms, glued to their phones. But she, with her unwavering thirst for knowledge, was different. Physical exhaustion could not shake her determination to work hard. She had arranged to meet a sophomore she had recently befriended to study in the library today, on the 3rd floor. Yvonne scanned her surroundings, found the staircase, and walked toward it. As she climbed the stairs, she sent her friend a text. She quickly received a reply, confirming that her friend was already in the 3rd floor study room. Just as she reached the 2nd floor and was about to continue up, Yvonne heard a voice from around the corner. It sounded vaguely familiar. It made her pause. In the 2nd floor study room, after writing several pages of the Heavenly Tactics proposal, Leo quietly excused himself to his girlfriend and got up to use the restroom. He found it at the end of the 2nd floor hallway. After taking care of business, he was washing his hands when he got a call from Marco. His roommates were playing the Battle Through the Heavens game and needed help with a dungeon strategy. He gave them a few quick tips, earning a torrent of gratitude from the other end of the line. Before hanging up, Marco casually asked where he was. Leo, walking back toward the study room, replied nonchalantly, "I'm at the library." No, it's not boring. My girl's here too." He hung up and put his phone away, heading back to the study room. He was completely unaware that a certain freshman, whom he had coincidentally run into twice in 2 days, had just ducked behind a wall. Watching the familiar figure of the senior walk away, Yvonne Moreau took a sharp breath, her heart trembling slightly. My girl, senior, isn't that a little forward? Even after she went upstairs and sat down in the 3rd floor study room, Yvonne Moreau was still in a daze, replaying the scene she had just witnessed on the 2nd floor. Over the years, her suitors had been as numerous as fish in the sea. She had seen all sorts of types, all kinds of elaborate pursuit tactics. But that senior, he still managed to shake her. 3 chance encounters in 2 days. The first time, she thought he was just a handsome, shy upperclassman. The second time, she discovered he had a bit of a cunning side, bold enough to play hard to get. She hadn't expected this third time. He wasn't just bold. He was a little too bold. She didn't know who he was talking to on the phone, but that phrase, my girl, could hardly refer to anyone but her. They had only seen each other 3 times. No, only twice, really. To use such a term of endearment was far too intimate. It was the first time in her life anyone had ever referred to her like that. For a fleeting moment, when she heard it, her heart had actually fluttered. And that's not all. Yvonne took a slow breath, her eyes sparkling with clear, intelligent light. She hadn't told anyone she was coming to the library to study. The senior must have gone to great lengths to find out her whereabouts and follow her here. If it had been anyone else, she would have frowned and called them out on such inappropriate behavior on the spot. But this handsome, shy, and slightly clever senior had managed to show a rare sense of restraint even in his pursuit. Although he had followed her to the library, he hadn't stalked her all the way. He hadn't caused her any further distress. He had simply chosen to stay on another floor. It seemed all he wanted was to be in the same space as her. Even just being in the same library, 1 floor apart, that was enough to satisfy him. Just as he had said on the phone, with my girl here, it's not boring anymore. That was what truly moved Yvonne. Her attitude toward the senior softened from the annoyance she might have felt for a stalker. The senior really does like me a lot, and he really is shy. His affection is so cautious, it's almost humble. However, even so, remembering something, Yvonne's expression turned serious and determined again. She respected his feelings for her. She wouldn't try to stop them, but calling her my girl was still too forward. That was a matter of principle. She couldn't make exceptions or give him special treatment just because she felt sorry for him. The next time they met, she would have to make it clear. Her thoughts spun, but she finally made a decision. Across from her, the sophomore girl saw that her freshman friend had been spacing out for quite some time. She couldn't help but wave a hand in front of Yvonne's face. "Yvonne, what are you thinking about?" Yvonne snapped back to reality and gave her friend an apologetic smile. "Nothing. I just got distracted." The sophomore raised an eyebrow, a gossipy glint in her eye. "I don't think so. What, are you thinking about some guy? Got a crush?" Yvonne let out a laugh and shook her head. "No, I came to college to focus on my studies, not to date." Her tone was serious and resolute. Her friend had probably heard this line more than once. She looked regretful. "I know, but you're so beautiful. You must have tons of suitors. It seems like a waste not to date at least once." Yvonne accepted the compliment without a trace of modesty, nodding in agreement. You're right, senior, but I still just want to focus on my studies." Her frank reply made her friend laugh, half in amusement, half in exasperation. She pointed a finger at her. All you think about is getting ahead. I should just start calling you Yvonne the go-getter." Yvonne nodded, pleased. "That's a good name, too." Then she looked at her friend and raised an eyebrow. "Senior Lily is very pretty, too. Haven't you thought about dating someone at school?" The girl she called Senior Lily was, of course, the former girl of the humanities department, Lily Liu. Hearing her freshman friend's question, Lily laughed. "Of course I have, but I'm not very lucky. I either meet the wrong guys and only escape after I see their true colors, or—" Lily paused before finishing with a smile. "Or the person I like already has a girlfriend. I'm just not that fortunate." Yvonne raised an eyebrow, offering her opinion. "If you like someone, you should fight for them with everything you've got." This time it was Lily's turn to laugh and shake her head. "I tried. I lost." Yvonne looked confused. "Senior Lily, you're so beautiful and talented, and you still lost?" The question stirred something in Lily. Memories from the past year flashed through her mind. Hostility, competition, shock, admiration, and finally, complete acceptance and sincere blessings. She sighed with a mix of emotions. That one, she was impossible to beat. Yvonne didn't understand the complex feelings behind her friend's words. She was just curious. "Is she prettier than you, Senior Lily?" Lily couldn't help but laugh, waving her hand. "You can't compare me to her. I'm not even in the same league." Then, her eyes fell on Yvonne, and a look of realization crossed her face. "But speaking of which, you and the person I'm talking about, you actually look a bit alike." Coming from Lily, this was a statement with considerable weight. For anyone else, it would have been an incredible compliment. But Yvonne didn't know who she was being compared to. She just blinked. Then she shook her head, offering her objective opinion. "It would be very difficult to be as beautiful as I am." It wasn't arrogance, but a simple statement of fact from a girl with a very straightforward personality. The comment left Lily at a loss for words. Before she could say anything, Yvonne thought for a moment and added seriously, "Besides, I don't want to be a second version of someone else. I want to be the first Yvonne Moreau." Having made her declaration, the girl nodded slightly, her confidence in her own words absolute. "Because I am the best." Leo, the man at the center of it all, was blissfully unaware that he had somehow become the object of a certain freshman's humble, deep-seated affection. He and his girlfriend spent the whole evening in the library study hall. Around 9:30, half an hour before the dorm's lights out, they packed up their bags and left. The moon was high in the sky, and stars hung among the willow branches. As they stepped out of the library, they were greeted by the evening breeze. It was a warm, gentle wind, a pleasant change from the library's cold air conditioning, and it carried a soft, romantic quality. They weren't in a hurry to get back to their dorms. The couple walked side by side, strolling leisurely across campus. They chatted casually, and Claire asked, curious, "What were you typing so furiously on your computer just now?" Leo smiled. "A new game. I'm working on the design document." Claire's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You're already making a new one so soon?" She didn't know much about online games. Her limited experience came from playing Bubble Blast, Audition Online, and some racing games with her boyfriend at LAN centers or at the LNS house. Oh, right. The Brainiac Blitz trivia game on Happiness counted, too. After all, logging on every day to beat up on unsuspecting kids had become a steadfast part of Ms. Bertha Sue's daily entertainment. But still, Claire knew that the Battle Through the Heavens browser game her boyfriend had made was a huge success online. It must be making a lot of money. The fact that he was already planning a new game so soon was unexpected. Leo just smiled and replied, "You can never have too much money. I have to earn more so I can support you properly." Though for the sterling heiress, money was little more than a number in a bank account. the money from her family and Sterling Holdings was completely different from the money her boyfriend earned to support her. So, that one sentence from him was enough to fill Ms. Bertha Sue with delight. She happily stood on her toes and gave him a rewarding kiss on the cheek. Then, a thought occurred to her, and she asked with concern, "But it can't be that easy to make a new game, right? Are you running into any problems?" With the success of the Battle Through the Heavens game, making another one that reached the same heights would be no easy feat. Claire had heard of the Battle Through the Heavens IP even in her past life. She knew the original novel's name would bring a huge amount of hype and traffic to the game. But to make a brand new game from scratch, her boyfriend wasn't some kind of reborn protagonist with cheat codes. He had already hit the jackpot with the Battle Through the Heavens IP. It couldn't be that easy to find another shortcut. Leo wasn't worried about his girlfriend's concerns. He smiled and wrapped an arm around her. "Don't worry, your boyfriend isn't just anybody. As a man who had been reborn, he had no shortage of ready-made ideas from his past life. The only real challenge in making this Heavenly Tactics game was figuring out how to refine the gameplay and balance the stats based on the core auto chess concept. He had already drafted the basic rules in the study hall that evening. All that was left was to define the specific stats and then overlay the various elements from the Battle Through the Heavens world. Teamfight Tactics had used League of Legends heroes. Battle Through the Heavens would use the characters and magical beasts from the original novel. Items and equipment would be easy. The novel's lore had hundreds of options, more than enough to rival the League of Legends system. But designing the various synergy effects, that was going to be a brain burner. When talking to his girlfriend, however, Leo puffed out his chest confidently. "It's a piece of cake. Your boyfriend has a great brain." Back in his dorm room later that night, after a sleepless night, Leo was sporting a new pair of dark circles under his eyes. Damn it, I shouldn't have bragged. It sounded simple. It was only when he started doing it that he realized how difficult it was. The game architects and writers who created the synergy system for Teamfight Tactics must have put in an incredible amount of work. Every synergy had to be logical and balanced against the others. Leo had spent the whole night lying in bed, trying to work it out. He had scrapped countless ideas. His brain cells were fried. He still hadn't come up with a satisfactory plan. His 3 roommates, after finishing their gaming session, were surprised to see him still awake. When they found out why, they all eagerly tried to help brainstorm. The results were, predictably, useless. Leon's synergy idea was perfectly in character for the date cake guy. 3 characters who like to eat date cakes. They can form a date cake synergy. Huh. Which characters in the original novel like date cakes? Why can't they all like them? Marco's suggestion was even more ridiculous. He enthusiastically proposed pairing Medusa and Yun Yun to create a Big Thunder synergy or a Mature Woman synergy, spouting one buzzword after another. Leo's eyelid started to twitch. If they actually did that, the game would be banned before it even launched. Only Dylan's advice was relatively sound. "Leo, if you want to create something like this, you need someone who's good at math. You can't just have concepts. The numbers will conflict." Leo thought about it and realized he was right. This wasn't a job for just anyone. He temporarily abandoned the idea of consulting with Potato, the author. Although he was the original creator, this kind of design required the mathematical thinking of an engineering major. Among the people working for him at Mako Entertainment, he had 2 main generals. Isabella Zhao. Oh, that dim-witted girl could be counted out for now. It was a miracle she could count to 100. Wyatt Wei, on the other hand, was a good choice. He was a top engineering student, his mathematical and logical thinking skills were up to par, and he was very familiar with the Battle Through the Heavens novel. Leo immediately emailed the draft of the design document to Wyatt. He then sent a text, briefly explaining the task. With the task delegated, he felt a wave of relief. This was how a boss should operate. You couldn't just do everything yourself. If you didn't give your employees more responsibility, how would they ever grow? It was all for their own good. With the burden lifted, Leo happily went to his morning classes with his roommates. On the way to the classroom building, they passed the athletic field again. They could still see the freshmen toiling under the hot sun, going through their orientation drills. Marco, Leon, and Dylan craned their necks, peering into the formations on the field. They were still muttering about Tian Wei from math and physics, Zhu Yitong from P.E., and Meng Yameng from engineering. They had been looking for days and hadn't spotted a single one. An Inuit girl from their own humanities department, Yvonne Moreau, was also nowhere to be seen. As Leo listened to his roommate's chatter, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was Cheryl Chun from the arts committee. He answered. Cheryl's familiar, brisk voice came through the phone. "What's up?" We're short on hands for the freshman welcome gala. You got time to come help your big sis Cheryl out. He had heard about this from Lily during English class yesterday, so he wasn't surprised. He had to give Cheryl face. He agreed readily and added a joke, sure. Cheryl, what's in it for me? Cheryl rolled her eyes on the other end. What more do you want? You want me to introduce you to some pretty freshmen? Just don't be afraid of your girlfriend ending your bloodline. Then, her voice perked up. Hey, but seriously, the girls who joined the arts committee this year are genuinely gorgeous. You'll get an eyeful helping out. Historically, the freshmen who joined their respective departments' arts committees had to have some talent or advantage in terms of appearance. In other words, out of all the groups and departments in any university, besides the official etiquette team, the arts committee was the place most likely to produce handsome guys and beautiful girls. And at Berkeley, the Humanities Department Arts Committee was renowned as one of the two major producers of beauties, on par with the School of Arts. As the head of the department's arts committee, Cheryl Chin's word carried more weight than the student council president's. Why? Besides her own solid work ethic and accomplishments, the more important reason was that she held a vast network of attractive people. A simple introduction from her, a little matchmaking, and people would be eternally grateful, ready to send her a thank you gift if things worked out. So, when Cheryl said that this year's new committee members were gorgeous, her words carried weight. They were credible. However, Leo wasn't particularly interested. He was purely doing Cheryl a favor. Pretty freshman. He was a taken man, loyal to the core. Besides, no matter how pretty a freshman was, she couldn't be prettier than his own wife. Oh, that one freshman he had run into a couple of times was actually really stunning. Too bad she turned out to be a bit of a mooch, trying to get a free drink off him just because she didn't have any money. The thought made him shake his head. His conclusion remained unchanged. His wife was the best. After his morning classes, Leo texted his girlfriend. As it happened, Claire had just finished her class in the next building. The couple had lunch together in the dining hall. During the meal, Claire looked up at Leo, her gaze steady, and suddenly said, Leo, we're about to be in a long-distance relationship. Leo, he looked up, a question mark on his face. What are you talking about? He then listened as Bertha Sue explained that starting this semester, more than half of the international finance majors classes would be held on the new campus. According to the schedule, she would have to be at the new campus for 2.5 days every week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning. Leo thought about his own schedule. Our advertising classes on the new campus are Monday afternoon and Friday afternoon, I think. They were completely misaligned. This semester, the couple would indeed be separated for nearly half of every week. It really is a long-distance relationship, Leo sighed. That's how it was in college. It was different from high school. The high school campus was tiny. Even if you were in different grades, in classrooms at opposite ends of the school, a determined couple could use the 10-minute break to sprint across campus to the back door of the other's classroom for a quick, whispered moment in the hallway, and then dash back just before the bell rang. College was a different beast. Some campuses were so huge that if you lived on one end and your partner lived on the other, it felt like you were in a long-distance relationship in a different city. Seeing each other was as rare as the annual meeting of the cowherd and the weaver girl from Myth. Berkeley's old and new campuses, one in the suburbs and one in the city center, were over a 40-minute drive apart. In Northwood, that was enough time for a round trip. Calling it a long-distance relationship wasn't an exaggeration at all. Leo stroked his chin and commented with dissatisfaction. Whoever made this schedule at Berkeley is a real piece of work. They were clearly trying to break him and Bertha Sue up. Only a single person could have come up with something so cruel. Claire was a little unhappy, too. She nodded in agreement. I'll have Mr. Joe handle them later. Grumbling was one thing, but the schedule was set, and as students, they had to follow it. After lunch, Leo walked Claire to the campus parking lot to catch the shuttle bus. On the way, Claire asked how the design for his new game was coming along. The moment Leo mentioned that he had delegated the task to Wyatt, his phone rang. It was the young master himself. Wyatt's voice on the phone was full of misery. Bro, it's not that I don't want to help, but this project is huge. I have to balance the stats and design at least a few dozen synergy concepts, and then I have to code and test them. Plus, I still have to oversee the development of the new dungeons for the Battle Through the Heavens game. I can't split myself into 3 people. Leo listened and thought he had a point, but he couldn't think of anyone else better suited for the job right now. He was trying to think of a way to console and encourage Wyatt when Claire looked over and offered, "Want me to try talking to him?" Leo generously handed her the phone. Claire took it and walked a few steps away. 10 seconds later, she walked back and handed the phone back to Leo. He's been persuaded. Leo took the phone, completely baffled, and put it to his ear. Hello. Wyatt's voice came through again, but this time it was firm and full of fighting spirit. Bro, don't worry. You can count on me. It's no problem. I'm not afraid of being tired. I can handle it. Young people need to take on more responsibility. Leo. He turned to look at his girlfriend. Claire just shrugged, looking as if it had nothing to do with her. The contents of Bertha Sue's 10-second pep talk to Wyatt the punching bag remain a mystery to this day. In any case, the job was done, and that was all that mattered. Leo happily hung up and walked his girlfriend to the parking lot. Before she got on the bus, the couple shared a reluctant farewell. Claire looked at her boyfriend and instructed, when I'm not here, make sure you eat on time. Be good, and don't go messing with any freshmen. The last sentence was the most important part. Leo readily agreed. Don't worry, I won't even have the chance. Claire nodded, satisfied. She reached out and patted his cheek, a small smile playing on her lips. Good. Otherwise, I might have to confiscate the tools of the crime. Leo instinctively tensed his legs. Terrifying. How could such a beautiful face say such horrifying things with a smile? That fox, a woman whose possessiveness was matched only by her beauty. He didn't have class that afternoon. Leo took a nap in his dorm and woke up around 3. With nothing else to do, he went to the humanities department's small office building. The arts committee had a dedicated rehearsal space there, and he was there to find Cheryl to see how he could help with the freshman welcome gala. He walked in and was greeted by a lively, bustling scene. Freshmen were gathered in small groups, holding various props and discussing their acts. It looked like rehearsals were already underway. A quick glance around told him that the freshmen were all quite attractive. The arts committee really had some talent this year. Cheryl was talking to a group of tall, charismatic freshmen. When she saw Leo walk in, her eyes lit up. She waved him over. Leo, over here. Leo called back and walked over. Cheryl enthusiastically introduced him. These are the hosts for this year's welcome gala. Come on, introduce yourselves. Leo smiled and nodded to each of them. Hello, hello. You. When he got to the last one, his voice trailed off. Looking at the last freshman girl, Leo froze for a second. Looking back at Leo, Yvonne Moreau, the female host of the humanities department's freshman welcome gala, also froze. The air fell silent for a moment. They stared at each other wide-eyed. The handsome, scheming senior and the cheapskate freshman both had the same thought. Whoa, what a coincidence. Senior, are you really this persistent? Diligent, hardworking, serious, and ambitious. In every aspect, in every field, she demanded the best of herself. This was the philosophy that had guided Yvonne Moreau, the girl who had earned the top scores in both academics and the arts to get into Berkeley for 18 years. First in military posture during orientation. First in bearing. First in votes for class president. Despite the exhaustion of orientation, she went to the library to prepare for her major courses. For the freshman welcome gala, she signed up for the arts committee and volunteered to be a host. She had to be the best she could be. Other people, trivial matters. Nothing could shake her ambition. Suitors lined up from the classroom building to the dining hall, but they couldn't sway her determination. There was just one small, unexpected exception, a complicated senior she had run into these past couple of days. Handsome and shy, yet clever and scheming. Deeply infatuated, yet he knew when to advance and when to retreat. She had never met a suitor like him before. She hadn't figured out how to handle him yet. And now just one day later, she had unexpectedly run into him again, here in the arts committee rehearsal room. No, perhaps. It wasn't an accident. Yvonne collected herself, her feelings toward the senior in front of her a complicated mix. The first time he brought breakfast, the second time a drink, the third time he followed her to the library. And this time, he had actually found his way to the arts committee rehearsal room. So it was confirmed. The senior was resourceful, and his feelings for her were now undeniable, practically shouting from the rooftops. But senior, when you like someone and want to pursue them, you can't be too clingy. Yvonne sighed internally, wanting to lecture him. But the memory of last night's scene made her hesitate. The senior knew his limits. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed her to the library only to stay on a different floor, unwilling to disturb her further. For someone with such restraint to suddenly appear before her today, there could only be one explanation. His longing for her was truly deep. Had already reached the point where he couldn't bear to go a single day without seeing her. Yvonne was a little touched. She sighed. A normal suitor could be rejected outright, a clear line drawn. But this kind of careful, devoted affection was hard to dismiss so easily. She didn't want to see the disappointment on his face. Her thoughts spun. Yvonne took a slow breath, chose her words carefully, and looked up at the senior with a smile, speaking gently. Senior, you see me now as you wished. We have work to do, so could you please go back first? Her tone was gentle, like she was coaxing a child. Now, Cheryl, question mark. The other hosts, question mark. They were all stunned for a moment, their minds struggling to process what was happening. Cheryl was the first to recover, but she was still confused. Go back where? This is Leo, your senior. I specifically asked him to come help with the gala. Now it was Yvonne's turn to be stunned. Help with the gala? A helper? The brilliant mind that had earned her top scores in the arts and academics momentarily short-circuited. But soon she understood. First, she could rule out the possibility that she was just being conceited. The only other explanation was that the senior had found this perfectly reasonable opportunity to get close to her, to see her openly. Yvonne looked up at Leo. Her eyes were clear and bright, filled with an all-knowing wisdom and a touch of admiration. Senior, you came prepared this time. She smiled faintly, returning to her usual elegant, cool demeanor. Oh, so that's how it is. Senior Leo, is it? Well then, I look forward to working with you over the next few days. Leo looked at the freshman, perplexed. He didn't know what was going on in her head, but it seemed like there was a lot of drama happening in there. He shook his head, not dwelling on it. He gave her a polite nod. No need to be so formal. Freshman. Oh, right, what's your name? The question made not only the other freshman hosts look surprised, but even Cheryl laughed. Hey you, are you really that out of the loop? You share a room with Marco, and he hasn't gossiped with you? You don't even know the new it girl of the humanities department? Only then did it click for Leo. He had heard his roommates mention her name countless times. He looked again at the freshman he had run into several times over the past 2 days and had a moment of realization. You're Yvonne Moreau. Yvonne looked back at him, an eyebrow slightly raised. Her eyes held an amused expression, as if to say, I'll just sit here and watch you perform. Last night, he was calling someone else my girl on the phone. Now he was pretending to be an innocent, clueless senior. Senior's acting skills are a bit clumsy. She decided to save the shy senior some face and not expose him. Yvonne smiled faintly. Yes, senior can just call me Yvonne. She paused, then added casually, but with a pointed reminder, anything else would be inappropriate. It was a subtle hint. Others might not understand, but the senior in front of her certainly would. Yvonne was pleased with her own high EQ. But the person standing in front of her just had a question mark floating over his head. What the hell? Why was this freshman so weird and cryptic? She was pretty, but she seemed a little dim-witted. Why did I say too? Achoo. At Berkeley's new campus, in an art studio, Isabella Zhao sneezed. She rubbed her nose and looked around suspiciously. Who's talking about me? Finding no culprit, Isabella put the matter aside and looked up at Claire Sterling, her spirits lifting again. Where was I? Oh, right. Wyatt and I already rented an office space for the company over the summer. It was mostly my work, of course. Wyatt didn't really do much. He was just there. The address is on Kongping Road. I went there every day during the summer to sunbathe. To work. Boss lady, if you're interested, I could take you to see it right now. Claire laughed. Sure. Thank you for all your hard work. She had just finished her afternoon classes on the new campus. She had come to see Isabella. Since she was already here, she might as well inspect her boyfriend's new company headquarters. It was her first time doing something like this as the boss lady. It was a new experience, but it was reasonable. In the arts committee rehearsal room, after introducing Leo to the freshmen, Cheryl pulled him aside to explain the status of the freshman welcome gala. There wasn't much to it, really. This year's gala followed roughly the same format as last year's. The only issue was the tight schedule. Last year, orientation was held before the official start of the semester, so the sophomore and junior members of the committee had plenty of time and energy to help the freshmen with their acts and costumes. But this year, freshman orientation coincided with the start of the semester for the upperclassmen. So now, with the gala fast approaching, just when they needed the most help, many of the upperclassmen on the committee were swamped with their own coursework and couldn't spare the time. As the head of the committee, Cheryl was at her wit's end, grabbing anyone she could to help out. And now, she had grabbed Leo. It's not too complicated, Cheryl said, speaking quickly as she laid out the situation. This year's acts are mostly set, and the freshmen are all talented enough. You'll just be in charge of supervising. I'll assign you a few acts in a bit, and you'll just need to keep an eye on their rehearsals for the next few days. She expertly and unapologetically delegated the tasks. Leo readily agreed. Then he remembered something and asked, if you're so short on hands, why didn't you call Marco? He's a veteran committee member. Cheryl waved a hand. I already did. I sent that kid out to lead the outreach team and get sponsorships for the gala. He's got a silver tongue. I'm thinking of grooming him to take over the outreach part of the committee. Leo nodded in understanding. Reasonable. With Marco's gift of gab and his naturally outgoing personality, he was perfect for the job. Cheryl was good at putting the right people in the right places. It seemed she saw potential in him. Just as he was thinking this, Cheryl sighed and added, and besides, the freshman girls are all so pretty this year. If I let that kid help with the acts, it would be like letting a mouse into a cheese factory. The acts wouldn't get rehearsed, but he'd have all their phone numbers. Leo thought about his roommate's usual M. Oh, he understood completely. He nodded emphatically. Reasonable. While Cheryl and Leo were discussing work, the freshman hosts were gathered in a corner, going over the draft of their script. After a few lines, their eyes couldn't help but drift over to where Cheryl and Leo were talking. They were all curious about the new senior. The two pretty female hosts, in particular, were sneaking glances at Leo and whispering to each other. Is Senior Leo also on our arts committee? I don't remember seeing him before. He's so handsome. Their voices were filled with a little bit of excitement. Even the two freshman boys next to them couldn't help but nod in agreement. He really is. And it's not just that. He has a different kind of vibe from most people. Yvonne Moreau, standing nearby, also nodded slightly, a look of agreement on her face. It was true. The senior had a different aura. It was a natural, easygoing charm that inexplicably drew people in. Of course, that was how he appeared in normal situations to other people. But when he was bringing her breakfast or a drink, he was a completely different person, shy, nervous, and flustered. Yvonne shook her head gently. That was reasonable, too. She couldn't blame him. She was, after all, very beautiful. However, a thought occurred to her as she glanced over at Leo again. This was the arts committee. They were here to work on the gala. They couldn't let personal feelings get in the way. I need to talk to him. Yvonne made a serious decision. After talking with Cheryl, who then rushed off to assign tasks to other committee members, Leo took the list of acts she had given him, found a chair in the corner, and sat down to look it over. He was just starting to think about how to schedule his time to meet with the freshmen when a figure appeared in front of him. He looked up. Oh, it was that weird, pretty, gibberish-spouting freshman again. Yvonne. Moreau, right? Leo had to think for a second to confirm. It wasn't that he had a bad memory. It was just that he had heard the names of so many new freshmen and girls from his roommates lately that they all started to blend together. Yvonne was taken aback for a moment. Then she shook her head internally. Oh, senior. Your acting is so clumsy, it's almost funny. She kindly decided not to expose him and simply nodded. Senior, is it convenient for us to sit and talk for a moment? She pointed to the long bench he was sitting on. Now it was Leo's turn to be surprised. He looked at the bench, then at the two empty chairs nearby. There are other empty seats. Why do you have to squeeze in here? But, out of seniorly courtesy, he reluctantly scooted over. Sure, have a seat. Seeing the senior's hesitant, shy expression, Yvonne once again shook her head internally, thinking how pure and innocent he was. She confidently sat down next to him. Then she turned to look at him. Senior, I'm very happy to be able to work with you on the freshman welcome gala. Leo nodded, not quite understanding where she was going with this. He replied politely, yeah, I'm happy to. The next moment, Yvonne's tone shifted. However, work is work. We have to be completely focused. So, I hope we can both put all our energy into preparing for the gala and not think about anything else for now. Is that okay? As she spoke, she looked directly into Leo's eyes. Her tone was sincere, her expression serious. But Leo just had a head full of question marks. What the hell? Put their energy into the gala and not think about anything else. Wasn't that obvious? What else would they be thinking about? Not understanding what she meant, he could only nod honestly. Sure. Yvonne smiled, satisfied with his answer, and stood up. Good. That's all I wanted to say. Senior, let's do our best together. With that, she turned and walked away, her steps light. Leo was left sitting on the bench, watching her retreating back, still completely bewildered. Seriously, what was that freshman gibbering on about now? He hadn't understood a single word. He couldn't help but shake his head. She talks so much nonsense. From now on, I'll just call her Gibberish Girl.